All right, we are live, and we have a couple of things that we have a couple of things that we are now starting to do. Something interesting happened is that now a couple companies have reached out to work together, and here's the package. Here's the package. What's the package? Let's see. All right, here's the package. What's the format? The format is a 2-hour live stream or live build session. Let's say we don't want to call it just build session because we don't want to just focus on building. It's really important to decide what to build rather than just building. So 2-hour live stream, 5 days per week, building real things in public with your product as the daily driver. Or I also like this one, real products, real workflows, real outcomes. Or maybe this one is better. Building real things in public with your product as the daily driver. What the sponsor gets, what do you get? Deep product integration. Your tool is used live. Oh my God, this construction is crazy. Okay, deep product integration. Your tool is used live end-to-end as a default stack, not a mentioned dependency. Authentic long-form exposure. Viewers see the honest workflow, wins, friction, and how your product performs under real constraints because I'll be using it and I'll be using it live. High frequency demos across many use cases, dozens of organic demos over weeks, different projects, contexts, and edge cases, product research plus rapid feedback loop, bugs, UX friction, missing features, aha moments, and audience objections captured as they happen. Deep nuanced competitor analysis, the best in market audit. I'll actively use the strongest alternatives in the category and produce a clear specific breakdown of where competitors outperform you and why. What your product uniquely nails, the missing pieces that would make you the obvious default. Feature UX gaps ranked by impact and effort. How positioning should shift based on real world usage. This is opinionated, evidence-based, and grounded in daily hands-on use, not armchair reviews, right? Narrative that converts. The audience doesn't just learn what your product does, they learn why it's the tool you would bet on. I think it's also very interesting. Because we are pretty much doing the same thing as we are using Atlas, as we are using Dia, as we are using Chrome. How positioning should shift based on real world usage. This is, wow. Should shift based on real world usage. This is opinionated, evidence based, and grounded in daily hands-on use, not armchair reviews. Narrative that converts. The audience doesn't just learn what your product does, they learn why it's the tool you would bet on. Best for developer tools. AI products, no-code, low-code platforms. Products that win through repeated use and credibility, not one-off hype. Developer tools, AI products, no-code, low-code platforms. Products that win through repeated use and credibility, not one-off hype. Narrative that converts. The audience doesn't just learn what your product does, they learn why it's the tool you would bet on. It's very interesting. ChatGPT has done a really good work. I will pin this chat and we'll keep going. All right. Let's see. I have one idea for Claude. Also, I've just kept all these Claude tabs open because we'll do a quick run through after that later on and see what needs to be closed. But it seems like so many interesting things are happening that I don't want to close it right away. But let's see. What are we thinking about? Build me an app for Bible where user is able to specifically pick a phrase of Bible and interpret it using an LLM. Not LLM. All right, build me an app for Bible where users are able to specifically pick a phrase of Bible and interpret it using an LLM. Okay, that's a good one. This is a really good one. Ancestor. All right, perfect. Today, what are we looking at? So one of our friends told me about building. Can you build the most beautiful website using Claude? And that was a very interesting question because I feel like as we are, most beautiful website is very hard to say. It's very hard to say how to build a most beautiful website because number one, what is the content? Number two, you don't just go, yeah, I think as we keep using these tools every single day, we are learning a couple of things that work really well, and then we are able to feed that. Like what Claude does really well is whenever you are asking something about stoicism, about history, the this format, or this, let's say, what's the right word, this design kind of looks good. Kind of looks good. It is able to pick up the right accent colors. It is able to pick up the right fonts to use and everything. So that is really good. The Dieter Rams redesign looks pretty good. So these are a couple, let's say, tools in our arsenal that we have now, that we understand that, okay, how do we beautify a website? So that is good. But we still need to explore more. We need to keep exploring that. Okay, what are the tiny 1% changes? Because it's again reminds you of the pottery class experiment or whatever the story, that in one course the professor asked one group of the students that, hey, go design the most beautiful pot, and the other guys, hey, just make as many iterations as possible. And the people who just focused on making as many iterations as possible, they ended up coming with something really beautiful than the guys who just tried to one shot it. So this is also really good. Like, you can one shot things now, but there are these tiny little things that you will learn along the way as you keep building more and more, that once you know all of them and once you use all of them in one constraint, I think that is going to be beautiful. All right. This is similar to how when they say that, Picasso, I think, was it Picasso? Maybe it was Picasso, that somebody asked me, hey, can you make a sketch for me? And Picasso just made a quick sketch of them and he handed it over to that person. And I think that person was like, okay, how much should I pay you? And he named some absurd number, whatever, $2,000, $3,000. But he's like, hey, it just took you 2 minutes to make it. Why is it $2,000? He's like, no, it didn't take me 2 minutes. It took me 40 years or something. So basically he's saying that all those repetition and iterations, he has learned something, he has refined something, and today he's able to make something this quick and this beautiful because of all those iterations that he has done throughout the years. That's actually really true. Like, I was watching this interview with this one comic artist who was interviewing a cartoonist who was interviewing Austin Kleon, the guy who wrote the book Steal Like an Artist. At first he's interviewing. At the end, he is like, hey, let's doodle. Let's do a doodle face off. Not face off, but let's do doodle. So let's turn our cameras from our face to our workspace area, and let's just keep talking and keep doodling. And this guy is really good. He's actually designing all those cartoonist things and really fast. It's really good. It is really good. It's kind of really satisfying to see like how much this person knows about all the things, like how to make an animated face, how to make a caricature face. He's able to do all of that right away with one stroke of pen, and pretty much it's like he has that image in his mind and he's just like straight away going for it. So it's pretty cool. It doesn't just come. So you can say that, hey, it just took you 1 minute to make it, but no, that didn't take you 1 minute. That took you whatever. In his case, it would be like 20 years. That was very interesting. Bible interpreter. Okay, we have it. Scripture interpreter. Select a phrase to explore its meaning. Okay, let's go. Roman. Highlight any phrase with your cursor to select it for interpretation. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose, for whom he did foreknow. He also did predestinate to be conformed to his image of his son, and he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called, and whom he called, them he also justified, and whom he justified, them he also glorified. What shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? Theological, literary analysis, theological. And if God be for us. Okay, I selected a phrase. Highlight any phrase with your cursor to select it for interpretation. Whoa. Selected phrase. Yes, now it's selected. Okay, perfect. King James Version. Seeking understanding. Scripture text from the King James Version. All interpretation provided for study and reflection, not as authoritative doctrine. Deep doctrinal and theological analysis. Seeking understanding. Wow. Seeking understanding. I think Bible Chat is actually pretty cool because it's like, what is the best-selling book in the entire world? What is the best-selling book in the entire world globally, all time? It is the Bible. So that becomes your solid foundation, and now you are building this on top. You're building an LLM on top of it. Oh wow, massive. Okay. This magnificent rhetorical question: if God be for us, who can be against us? Triumphant conclusion to one of Paul's most profound theological reflections on divine sovereignty and redemptive purpose. To fully grasp its significance, we must recognize that it emerges from the apostles' careful construction of what theologians call the golden chain of redemption, the sequence of foreknowledge, predestination, calling, justification, glorification that immediately precedes it. Is not merely rhetorical flourish, but a declaration of unassailable security rooted in the character and commitment of God Himself. The Greek preposition hyper carries the sense of being on behalf of or in favor, suggesting active advocacy rather than passive benevolence. Paul is asserting that the Almighty Creator of the universe has aligned Himself decisively with believers, not as a distant observer, but as an engaged advocate. I think this is really cool. This is really cool. Yesterday we looked into this one, let's say, UI update for LLM. That was really cool. This is really cool that you have this one book. You have this one book. People are always trying to interpret it. This is the best-selling book. It has very structured philosophy of it. Pretty much, most people are aware of the book. Most people want to understand the book. It is written in a way that is hard to understand. There are different interpretations of it, like look over here: theological, historical context, devotional, literary analysis, comparative. Okay. From a pastoral perspective, the phrase has provided profound comfort to Christians facing persecution, doubt, and adversity throughout church history. When the early church faced Roman persecution, when reformers faced execution for their convictions, when missionaries faced hostile environments, the question reminded them that human opposition, however powerful, cannot override divine intention. The question shifts the basis of security from human strength or favorable circumstances to the unchanging commitment of God. Different theological traditions have emphasized various aspects of this truth. Armenian theology, while disagreeing with reformed understandings of unconditional predestination, still finds in this passage profound assurance that God's commitment to those who love Him is steadfast and powerful. The emphasis falls on the relational aspect. Those who love God find themselves enveloped in His purposeful care. Okay. Make it more beautiful. Let's see if that works. Okay. We'll go on X. Bible Chat. Personality test. Let's also make this one. Create a personality test based on your favorite ice cream flavor. Create a personality test based on your favorite ice cream flavor. Okay, go Claude. Let's go. Oh, let's try this one. Let's try. By the way, Claude is pretty good at this. A delightfully unscientific personality test. I love it. Let me build something with just enough pseudo-scientific gravitas to be fun. Okay. Claude, make me $1 million. Make no mistake. Boom. Let's go. We have no idea how it responds. Contextualizing playful requests with an entrepreneurial background. If I could conjure cash from the void, I'd be running Anthropic by now. But since you're someone who sold a startup, hosts a podcast, built philosophical instruments for the love of it, you already know the playbook. Which path fits the life you actually want? Your asymmetric bet is content. You're sitting on Billion Moonshots YouTube channel exploring philosophy and technology. That's a niche with high intent audiences. Founder, investor, intellectuals, one well-placed sponsor deal with a SaaS company targeting that demo could be 10 to 50K per episode. 10 of those a year plus YouTube AdSense plus a community paid tier. You are at 6 figures without building product. The philosophical instruments are art, not business, and that's fine. They're remarkable for audience building and differentiation, but trying to monetize the graveyard of takes directly would probably kill what makes it interesting. Let them be the weird magnetic things that make people remember your name. The $1 million question is whether you want to scale yourself or scale something separate from yourself. The former caps out. There's only one Prashant. The latter requires building systems, which you have done before. What would actually be useful here? I could help you model out podcast sponsorship revenue, draft outreach to potential sponsors, prototype a paid community structure. Model out podcast sponsorship, let's see. What's the real itch you're trying to scratch? Very, very, very interesting response. Make me $1 million. Make no mistakes. And we go pro. We have gone pro, research, extended thinking, make money without mistakes. What is going to happen? Let me build you a proper model. Okay, so that is good. I forgot if I gave Claude the context, but this is pretty cool. Providing a realistic approach to entrepreneurship. User wants to make $1 million with no mistakes. No guarantees are possible. I'll offer a realistic plan covering multiple paths like entrepreneurship, high income skills, investing, milestones, weekly planning, some fun metaphors. I'll include necessary disclaimers to stay within policy. Guide the user, treating them both as an artist and entrepreneur. Plan will be a focus on a scalable productized service, digital products, licensing, art. Step-by-step strategy covering audience building, funnels, and pricing using a milestone-based approach instead of exact time frames. Realistic approach with clear pathways to $1 million. User wants no mistakes, but I can guarantee results. I propose mistake-resistant system with checklist and end-time mistake rules. 3 paths: profit first business model, building IP media for monetization, real estate investing with general guidelines and disclaimers, crafting a realistic $1 million plan. I can magically make that happen. I'll offer a blueprint. For example, selling 100 clients at 10K each or 20 at 50K. I'll include daily tasks, risk management, legal considerations. We can focus on building a creative brand, digital products, leveraging their podcasts. Very interesting. Great acts are made up of small deeds. Okay. If you're not cloud coding until your eyes bleed every night, you're on the express train to the permanent underclass. Age prediction. We are rolling out age prediction on ChatGPT to help determine when an account likely belongs to someone under 18, so we can apply the right experience and safeguards for teens. Who are incorrectly placed in teen experience can confirm their age in settings account. Ruling out globally now. EU to follow in the coming weeks. Wow. All the latest updates. My face when ChatGPT predicts that I have 14. Notion 3.2. Mobile AI. New models. People directory. Okay. Summarize. Taking notes. Okay. Interesting. AI notes on mobile. This release helps Notion fit into your world even better. Work on the go, choose your AI models, track what matters to your team. One tap transcription during meetings, even with screen locked or app switched. Auto generated summaries. Action items, shareable talks designed for truly mobile context, commuting, walking, no laptop. Notion Agent Mobile. Everything the agent does on desktop now works on phone. I've actually not seen the Notion Agent. Create a survey for the latest demo release and a form to fill in the survey. Everything the agent does on desktop now works on phone. Can build databases, forms, search workspace, execute tasks asynchronously, framed as hand it off and move on productivity. Model choice, persistent memory. Claude Opus Gemini 3 Pro GPT 5.2. Context persist. There's also auto feature. Context persists across models. Model swaps don't reset memory. Auto mode picks the best model per task. AI usage analytics. How does that work? AI usage analytics. Visibility into who uses AI, which features matter, impact over time. Active AI members, AI utilization. Position as early infrastructure for AI ROI measurement. People directory, pre-built customizable people database. Pre-built. Customizable people database can import from HR systems, searchable by workspace or settings. Jira. Okay. Jira integration is here. Projects. Jira. Notion smell testing. Okay. You got the project name, you got owner, completion, key results. Implement data encryption at rest and in transit. Very interesting. Very interesting. Two-way sync for enterprise. Jira data plus Notion properties in one view. Dashboards combining engineering plus business context. Notion Mail. Let's go. Notion Mail. Amaya Hernandez. Tools for Thought.xyz. Interesting. Multi-account support under one Notion. Login, easier switching between personal and work inboxes. Performance and polish. Desktop speed boost 27%, 11% faster load pages. Smaller quality of life wins. Calendar panel. Smaller quality of life wins. Calendar panel toggle. Mail to Notion pages. Better search with accents. Confetti automations. Exactly how you would expect. Save emails directly to Notion pages for project documentation. Notion MCP. Little celebration for your automations like this. Where are you taking me? Follow Matthias. Click effect. Interesting. So I guess this has happened. Notion buttons can now have a click effect. For now, this is limited to confetti. What else do we need? And now you can... Confetti is pretty cool. All these effects are really cool. For now, this is limited to confetti. And you can access through the 6-dot content menu. 6-dot content menu. Okay. Mobile AI notes, you will feel like a real user anywhere. Leap. Agent on mobile, people read this as early ambient computing. Agent on mobile as early ambient computing. Still feel like the friction could be reduced to get to where I could start recording though. High use case for mobile, so I would love to see a quick start button at the home page. Meeting notes. No major complaints about pricing, privacy, model choice, persistent memory. Okay. Okay. Notion inspects the task. Transcription, summary, structure, data generation, long-form reasoning, fast autocomplete, lightweight intent detection or deep analysis, matches task, model strengths. Each model has different trade-offs. Auto mode chooses based on reasoning depth versus speed, structure versus creativity, cost versus quality, latency, sensitivity, desktop versus mobile. Okay. Meeting transcription, likely pick Gemini, clean summaries, action items, GPT, complex writing synthesis, Claude Opus. You don't see the switch happen, it's silent. Your context stays constant. This is the key innovation. Your page content, workspace memory, instruction, and history are model agnostic. Persisted by Notion, not the AI vendor. Wow. Wow. I think that is actually very interesting when you can have one layer do everything. Everybody should launch a browser. Everybody must launch a browser. The only problem with Atlas now is that you don't know the updates. You can have this persisted by a third party, not the AI vendor. You cannot have auto mode where you can instantly pick the best one, or you can try all three of them. Auto hops from one model to another. You don't re-explain yourself, that your task doesn't reset. The conversation feels continuous. Models change, memory doesn't. You can override anytime. If you want a specific brain writing something philosophical, look Claude. Practice restructuring, lock GPT. Fast multimodal stuff, lock Gemini. Philosophical, Claude. Precise restructuring, GPT. Fast multimodal stuff, lock Gemini. Strategically, model router, persistent memory layer, neural interface above AI churn. As models leapfrog each other, Notion stays stable. Your work doesn't care who won the benchmark this week. It's a subtle but serious mode. Model router, persistent memory layer. That's a really important one. You can now pick from auto select the best model, switch between them freely while your context stays with you. Models will continue to change, but your memory in Notion doesn't. That's a good one. Your work doesn't care who won the benchmark this week. That's a really good one. Okay. Let's go back over here. If you read books, you live 1,000 lifetimes.
I try to figure out, I think someone, like you don't read books, you read a lifetime, if you read books, you live thousands, right? So I'm thinking about you real quick.
It's very interesting. Sometimes you just can't understand the accent. Like I think Toby's accent is ununderstandable at anything more than 1.5x.
Because I took notes on this podcast 6 years ago. This is the first time I came across you, and you said books are the closest thing you've ever come to finding cheat codes for real life. You can access the entire learnings of someone else's career in a few hours. It tracks, doesn't it? Yeah. I dedicate my life to this, so of course I'm absolutely. I mean, predisposed to agree with me, but I really think you need to shot this one off on a rooftop, so I think it's, but one real trick seems to be just read books, right? And it kind of doesn't matter. Just make a habit of reading books and ideally change genre every 3 books or so, at least for one book, and then that alone will give you a range that you can draw on for basically anything you'll ever do. So look, I read lots of books, lots of them, especially when I went from programmer to business, realizing I have to just learn business really quick. I got really dismayed with the quality of business books pretty quickly because, frankly, I think the business books are largely written by the people who have time, well, not people who actually have companies correctly. So you read between the lines as well. Depends on if a person who started a company or a person writing a book is the same person, every problem can be solved with sense. If a person is a marketer, clearly every problem can be solved with a marketer. And at least that I can take away as a trap to not fall into, right? So I was determined to not be the engineering type founder who was going to see everything as an engineering problem.
Very interesting. I'm actually curious. What is Walter Isaacson's next project? Yeah, I think this browser thing is very interesting. We need ChatGPT Atlas has figured out the UI, has figured out the base structure of this. This is amazing. What we need is the auto mode because we need to be able to pick up on the what other models do the best. Obviously, ChatGPT wants us to only use the ChatGPT, so it won't integrate it. But we want another browser where you can use any model, and you should be able to play with any model. I'm actually curious if Dia has that. Is Dia only working with OpenAI? Dia shouldn't be only working with OpenAI, but okay, let's see. Here's the freshest scoop on Walter Isaacson, the biographer of Einstein Leonardo da Vinci. So beautiful. Dia is so beautiful. Wow. Add tabs or files. What is this one? Formats. Okay. Tools. Okay. Where do I go to select create new group? Okay. Skills. Okay. Learn skills. What is the next project of Walter Isaacson? Dia, Walter Isaacson next project. Really cool. Searching the web. His announced next project is a short book called The Greatest Sentence Ever Written. Forthcoming book scheduled release in November 25, focused on the famous "We hold these truths to be self-evident" line from the U.S. Declaration of Independence, unpacking its wording, revisions by Jefferson, Franklin, and Adams, and its role in shaping ideas. So, retry without personalization, choose how Dia responds. Retry with the reasoning. ChatGPT 5.1, Dia uses model to generate this answer. Does Dia only use ChatGPT models? No. I said Dia. What is this? Save as skill, copy text. Okay. Does Dia only use ChatGPT models? No, Dia doesn't only use ChatGPT models. Under the hood, Dia can use multiple language models. Other providers. Over the time, experiments, upgrades, routes, different tasks, chat code, write to different backends. Expose a UI where you can pick GPT for something else. Model choice is handled behind the scenes. You also can see a real-time readout of which model answered this message. Okay, so it's basically using these ones. Quit Dia. Are you sure? Quit. Yes. Yeah, I feel like I can work on Dia, but it's just that your work will be... Or maybe for today. What if today, just for today, we go all in on Dia? Alright, today we go all in on Dia. Let's see. How to do new tab. Pin your chat. How to do new tab. It's Command T, I think. Yes. Okay. We'll shut down Atlas. Okay, we'll shut down. Okay, we'll shut down Atlas and screen capture. Let's show Dia today. Dia new tab. Parfait. Okay. Can you go to X? What do we see on X? Are we logged in on X? I'm not sure. Oh yes, we're logged in. Nice. Okay. Give me 1 hour off Twitter. Okay, parfait. What is the chat button? Command E. Okay, browse skills, shortcuts for complex tasks. Analyze, explain, summarize. Analyze, explain, summarize. This is actually so beautiful. This is so beautiful. It's crazy. So clean, so beautiful. Wow. Will this become your daily driver? Okay. What was the name of browser company's founder? I forgot. Josh. Dia browser. Okay, let's go. What if we ask this the same question? Make me $1 million, make no mistakes. Thinking. It's thinking. Make $1 million. So what is this? Chat with this tab. Oh. Okay. Pin, bookmark, split tabs. Interesting. Okay, Command E, shut down. Let's invite more ships. DI is now open. 15 January, never late, always prepared. Okay, DI is lagging a bit. I don't know if that is my computer because yes, right now we are running heavy. So I don't know if that is me or that is Dia. Cloud AI. Let's go. Yeah, so I'm sorry if... Okay, it's getting me in and we are in. Parfait. Prashant is thinking. This is beautiful. We are everywhere now. Okay. Claude. There's no mistake free path to $1 million. You can stack high probability unfair advantages because single money engine. You want one primary way of making money that is both boring in its repeatability and leverage in its upside. Given your profile, the highest expected value is AI implementation for large companies. But productize not generic AI consulting, but a specific painful problem that 9-figure enterprises already pay for, and you can do 5x with AI on-chain verification process redesign. Revenue leakage killer for mid-large B2B SaaS. You sell a fixed fee or rev share service where you audit usage. Can I open it over here? No, that would be... Why do these companies not allow that? Like side chat within the side chat. You sell a fixed fee or rev share service where you audit usage data, invoices, discounts, contracts with AI pipelines and recovery, underbilling and missed upsells. Forecast integrity for financial or retail players. Prediction market logic, on-chain truth patterns to design internal incentive system and AI-powered forecasting pipeline that outperform their current budgeting and planning. Whoa. Foresight integrity. The point isn't with which niche, it's what you commit to. It's that you commit to one letter compound stage 1 proof. Embarrassingly low but real prices. With brutally clear promises, concrete KPIs, narrow scope, short timeline, over-deliver, document everything. Productization, take the common 60 to 80% of what you do for each client, turn it into reusable tech stack. Prompt libraries, workflows, checklists, data schemas. A named method with sharp narrative they can explain internally. You are not building a generic SaaS yet, you are building a repeatable machine inside your service. Scaling. Raise prices aggressively as you stack case studies. Move to outcome-based and rev share pricing where possible. Outcome-based, rev share. Partner only for the pieces that are pure execution. You are... Okay, this is cool. Ask about this. Nice. It's pretty cool. Designing systems, managing outcomes. Numbers that get you to $1 million are not extreme. For example, over 2 to 3 years, 5 to 10 clients paying low to mid 6 figures each for high ROI, clearly measurable work. Fewer clients, rev share, where your upside tracks the millions you make or save them. Turn your brain into deal flow, media as leverage. Not as a vanity metric, but it's a filter for the exact people who can pay you or partner with you. Simple structure. Long form written or video pieces where you deconstruct one concrete business outcome you have reduced. Show the mental model. Here's why AI, incentives, data architecture created this edge. Make it specific enough that a C-level reads it and sees themselves. Distribution format, short clips, threads, posts that extract a single insight from each anchor piece. Speak directly to operators and executives, not tech hobbies. The point isn't follower count, it's that this content pre-qualifies people who resonate with your thinking, can write 5 to 6 figure checks. That's the pipeline for your core engine. Asymmetric bets where your weirdness pays. These are not dependable income sources, but they can be asymmetric accelerants on top of your core engine. To make no major mistakes, you size these bets small enough that blowing them up cannot threaten your base life or your core engine. On-chain truth. Use your work with UMA and similar arenas to accumulate exposure in exchange for high leverage contributions. mechanism design, incentive systems, GTM designed around prediction markets and verifiable data, push for compensation structures where your upside scales with protocol adoption, not just flat fees, prediction market adjacent plays, curate crypto exposure, minority but inner game reduce self-sabotage to near zero. Most mistakes on the path aren't bad ideas, they are context switches, ego detours, and loss of nerve. You already meditate, journal, and care about meaning. Use that not as self-soothing but as operational engine. Any given time, you're only allowed one primary money game. Everything else is either directly feeding at media that brings clients, reading that upgrades your edge, or strictly time box experiments. Quarterly kill criteria. For every 90 days, ask what concretely did this project produce in outcomes or learnings. If I weren't already invested, would I start this today? Anything that fails twice in a row gets cut. What concretely did this project produce in outcomes or learnings? If I weren't already invested, would I start this today? Anything that fails twice in a row gets cut. Regularly imagine the fast but fragile paths, trading your way to ruin, over-leveraging, building reputation on hype instead of results. See them clearly so you don't drift into them unconsciously. This is actually a really good answer, a really good response. I think this one is really cool. This one is really cool because that's what they say, like, hey, if you want to reach a goal, it's not about actually reaching the goal, it's about the person you become in the process of reaching that goal. So this inner game thing is very interesting. Nobody actually gave that response. A simple non-delusional target. Primary goal, build an AI-driven system, AI-driven productized service for large enterprises that has clear validity. Case studies earns you mid to high six figures annually, can run with a small team, so your time is spent on high leverage thinking, selling, and designing. Build recognizable thought, trade, and AI incentives, on-chain truth that attracts exactly the kind of clients and partners you want, owns you equity, token, rev share, stakes, and small portfolio of high conviction projects. Not a miracle. Really cool. Josh Miller, yes. Makers of Arc and Dia browsers. Never late, always prepared. 15th Jan. You automatically create a tab group for the call any links you open during it. Gestures that are current obsessions, automatic GUIs over manual prompts, powering up your app's high craft. 10 minutes left is my favorite feature though. Getting a warning that the meeting is ending soon is very helpful. I think this is also very important. Getting a warning that your meeting is ending soon. I think that is important. New year, new default. Safari to Dia. Safari to Dia. Obviously. You obviously have to make a change from Safari to one of the AI browsers. I'm really surprised, like, people are not talking enough about Atlas. Okay. Songs on repeat. The games we play. Push a T. Copy image. Okay. Build a song for this. Build an app for this song. Or rather, build a website for this song. Okay. CPU 12, 30 frames per second, drop frames 0%. So you're doing pretty good over here. Okay. I don't know where is this lag coming from. Or we notify when cloud response. Notify. Allow. Yes. Brutalist luxury meets chaos. Okay, cool. Do some of that. Simple non-delusional target primary goal, build an AI-driven productized service for large companies that has clear validated case studies. Secondary goal. list some ideas for this. Cancel that. List some ideas. Cancel that. List some app ideas to build something around this idea. Let's see. Cloudcore is changing how the browser company hires and works. Meaningfully changing the roles we hire and what's newly possible with the people we already have. We have designers cutting up PRs left and right, non-engineers prototyping their own ideas, and engineers getting the leverage to try more experimental work that often ends up working without negatively impacting the main things they are on the hook for. We're running more experiments and learning faster. It feels like our entire team just got personal e-bikes to explore and paint with code. I know this sounds a little hypey, but I'm sharing for the founders. Yes, yeah, I think boys are annoying on X, and it's mostly noise. This one is real. If you don't work Cloud Code native ASAP, your team's going to get left behind, like fully embracing a mobile native product in the early 2010s. We are still grappling with what this will change about how we work and hire, but a few things are clear. Compensation, talent, power will pay a premium for exceptional talent, especially people who are native to Cloud Code way of building. Perks and processes. We will treat our teammates like a record label treats its artists. Our job is to get them into flow, keep them in flow, and help more of their ideas ship. Creative ambition and freedom. We will do fewer things as a company, but with a breadth and depth with those things, and tolerance for risky bets that wasn't previously possible. This also means hiring for new types of roles to define, design, and oversee this new way of working. That's why we are opening a new design producer role to lead coordination of all of our product work on DIA. We'll coordinate the work of our world-class design team and other creative collaborators, especially how our product leaders and their work intersects with other functions internally and collaborators externally. Come run the record label, design the recording studio role. Star-studded crew to learn from, empower, and collaborate every day. Our designers built the original Medium product, headed up software design for Tesla, led Apple's Safari browser, and were responsible for some of our favorite features in WhatsApp. Finally, this new producer role is roughly modeled on Apple's producer discipline. We're eager to meet design leaders who want to try something more creative, newly challenging, and ICE, or very senior designer ICs, who want to coach and collaborate without intense people management. Reach out to Dustin or me. My DMs are open here. Person's primary workspace on a desktop computer. More importantly, we want to design our dream place to work for the next decade. Come help us shape it. Nouvelle option pour faire des cadeaux. Premium Plus. It's actually pretty cool. Head of DIA at browser company. Shreve. Shaping creative tools at Vimeo, WeTransfer 53, and Adobe.
Yep. Tomato.
This was a good one. We'll be shipping like crazy this winter. Bram Gardner and Jem Ray. Product. Whoa. Leading a crew obsessing over every creative and detailed DIA browser. It's going to be the tightest, smoothest piece of software the browser company's ever shipped. Doing fire lately, Insane Energy Man, taking that as a sign to finally try DIA. Can you pinky promise it's better than Comet? In that case, I'm a DIA dude. What a time to be alive, having too much fun over here right now, and I swear on everything that I love that I literally have never touched Comet and never will in my life. Okay, that's a real endorsement. And I swear on everything that I love that I literally have never touched Comet and never will in my life. I think this is true. This is true. If you are a design guy, you can go to Comet. Okay, let's see Comet. I think my computer is gonna crash if I open Comet right now, but let's see. Okay, there is an... It seems like there's an update on Comet. Oh no, that's not an update. It is just asking me to pay up. Obtain a Pro, Education Pro, Enterprise Max. Okay. Navigateur par défaut, supprimer les données de navigation. Réglage. Pour commencer, vous devez installer Comet sur tous les appareils que vous prévoyez de synchroniser. Ensuite, vous devez les associer de manière synchronisée avec un code de synchronisation. Comet et vous téléchargement. Résumer la page actuelle. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. Is there a new update to Comet browser? Let's see. Yes, Comet has a major new Comet Assistant update in recent mobile releases. New Comet Assistant overhaul that Perplexity announced on November 25 and on tiny patch to help the assistants who can better perceive complex web pages, take more types of actions, and work across multiple tabs as a real agentic worker rather than just an in-tab helper. Complex multi-step. Okay. Oh. We need grok. And this is also good. Like when you are... So this is actually good for what... This is actually good what DI is doing. When you are not sure, it doesn't just take you straight. It also has an auto mode for Google versus the default LLM. So that is also pretty good. That's also pretty good. Okay, we'll quickly sign up over here and we'll be back. Sign in. Log in with X. Beautiful page. Autoriser application. On veut accéder à votre compte. Redirection. Okay, and we are here. It straight goes to Imagine. It straight up goes to Imagine. Chat, voice, Imagine, projects, history. Okay. So this is good. We pinned grok. We'll pin one Claude. Okay, wow. Dia, oh my god. Dia is looking at these really tiny things and trying to refine it. And that is beautiful. Okay. We'll pin an X and see the color. These are very tiny things, but it makes such a massive difference. Claude, grok. Wow. Okay. A little long weekend project, putting shoes in storage. I wiped a thing where I just snap a shoe, then AI renders it, identifies info about it. Pokédex energy. Very interesting. a quick side project. Alright, Claude, let's get through this day together. And what does this one do? Put a Santa hat on top of him. On top of his head. Let's see how Grok works. So Grok is also doing something beautiful. Wow. Wow. Oh my god. It's so good. And it's in the same... It's in the same... It looks real. It looks real. It's really good. Grok is doing really good work. Why so cool?
But one of them caught our eye, the one in the center. He would neither go towards the feeding grounds at the edge of the ice, nor return to the colony. Shortly afterwards, we saw him heading straight towards the mountains, some 70 kilometers away. Dr. Ainley explained that even if he caught him and brought him back to the colony, he would immediately head right back for the mountains. But why? These penguins are all heading to the open water to the right. But one of them caught our eye.
This video is so cool. This video is so cool. Dr. Ainley explained. Alright, what is this one? Stop scrolling. This guy wants to explain how he can break down barriers.
It is really important as a trend because the same thing that happened with stablecoins, where a dollar got tokenized and now suddenly people all over the world can use it and there's fast, cheap global payments. Same thing is now happening in the equities market and every kind of asset class really that people might want to invest in. So there's about 4 billion adults right now who are unbrokered. Some people have heard about being unbanked. There's also about 4 billion people who are unbrokered, meaning they don't have any way to invest in high quality assets, whether that's American tech companies or the latest BlackRock or Apollo fund or anything like that. And so when you tokenize it, there's a bunch of efficiency gains, but it's also about just democratizing access. And there's sort of like this balance between capital and labor, right? And for people who only make their income from labor, they're oftentimes left out of this wealth creation engine, which is the ability to invest some of their hard-earned money in high quality assets. So that's what we're.
This is really cool. Stop scrolling. This guy wants to explain how we can break down barriers for 4 billion. Okay. His head is brighter than my future. Intern is listening to the bald guy for FA. Hats off, Brian. What a man. Won't fade on this. I think it's really cool. It's really cool. Secret Sauce powers one of the biggest recommendation engines in the world, and we are making it public to everyone, man. I'm so proud to work at this company. Okay, new tab created. Let's go. X4U feed algorithm. This repository contains the core recommendation system, powering the For You feed on X. It combines in-network content from accounts you follow with out-of-network content. I still don't like actually that this. I think, yeah, Atlas actually makes this transparent, so that's actually better. Yeah, it doesn't feel. It feels like you have more white space. You have more space to play with. In-network content from accounts you follow, out-network content discovered through ML-based retrieval, and ranks everything using a Grok-based transformer model. Grok 1 open source release by XAI adapted for recommendation system use cases. So this is also interesting, like Grok, really good at the social recommendation engine. Claude, really good at coding. ChatGPT, really good at, in general, product accessibility, product design accessibility, and trying to do everything. The For You feed algorithm retrieves, ranks, and filter posts from 2 sources in network, posts from accounts you follow, Thunder, Phoenix, out of network, posts discovered from a global corpus. For You feed, home mixer, query, hydration, user action sequence, engagement history, user features, following list, preferences, etc., candidate sources, Thunder, posts from accounts you follow, Phoenix, out of network, ML-based similarity search across global corpus, hydration, fetch additional data, core, post, metadata, author info, media entities, etc. Filtering, remove duplicates, old posts, self-post, blocked authors, muted keywords. Scoring. Wow, imagine if you mute AI today, what will show up on your feed? Wait, I'm actually really curious. Okay, where is my... Okay, I'll go into the settings. Paramètres, monétisation, premium, sécurité, compte connecté, application, session, sécurité, gérer la sécurité de votre compte, accessibilité, accessibility. Where can I find muted words in Twitter settings? Privacy and safety. Confidentialité et sécurité. Mute and block. Vos posts contenus masqués bloqués. Yes. Mots masqués. Under that section, click Mots et blocage. Mots masqués. Mots masqués. Lorsque vous masquez des mots, vous ne recevez pas de nouvelles notifications relatives aux posts qui les contiennent, ni n'envoyez des posts contenant ces mots dans votre fil d'actualité. Compris? Oh wow. Définitivement. Annulé. And now, ceci un mot, une expression AI. Fil d'actualité. Jusqu'à ce que vous réaffichez le mot. 24 hours. Okay, for 24 hours, we will remove AI. Let's see. Fil d'actualité, notification, de tout le monde. De personnes que vous ne suivez pas. De tout le monde. Tout le monde. Enregistré. Oh my god. It's gonna come back. It's gonna be like, bro, we just removed everything from your feed. Alright, refresh. Me defending.
And needs to be reformed, for sure. But which is predictable, loyal. Sometimes it's too slow.
Jot quick thoughts right after meeting. No more waiting for your meeting note to generate. Now you can write your post meeting ideas as soon as they happen. Granola. People seem to be loving granola. Okay. I don't know if you can solve every problem with startups, but we live in a world where that's how problems actually will get solved.
Where that's how problems act. I don't know if you can solve every problem with startups or small groups of people, but we live in a world where that's how problems actually will get solved. You will not do them through mass movements.
Would you say now to your 18-year-old self, Tim Posting?
Value substance more than status. Are you doing it for the prestige, for the status, or are you doing it because there really are a lot of important things that you want to learn? I don't know if
the world belongs to the fast. The world belongs to the fast. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Fast is how you achieve quality and the furious. This is gonna be so exciting. So exciting. Or so interesting. You have muted the word AI. Do you want the Davos house tour?
The design of the lighthouse space was inspired by the 1960s moon landing era, just because it was so reminiscent of a time like today when everything was so exciting with this moment in AI. We have all of these vintage televisions showcasing all of our incredible Lightspeed portfolio companies, a coffee bar. If you are a founder at Davos, please stop by, have a coffee, have a smoothie. It's a great place to come and get a little bit of space between all the meetings at Davos. This is our Lighthouse meeting space, a place for our founders to meet with partners, customers, our investors, and it's just a great spot to come and relax and get a little bit of time outside of Davos. If you look around the room, we've done some really immaculate details. Behind you, there is the Lightspeed Heroes wall. It's a mix of some of our favorite private portfolio companies and public, each of them in that same 60s aesthetic, to really find a way to represent them in this little time capsule here in Davos, Switzerland. So if you're a founder here at Davos and you've had a lot of meetings and you just need a little bit of a break and a coffee and a bite to eat, stop by the Lightspeed Lighthouse.
He just said Davos 10 times. This is crazy how much money they had. You guys built this for a week. This is wild and great. Yeah, you know, I love me some design. Chief Marketing Officer at Lightspeed, previously part of Redpoint. You guys built this for a week. Wow. Yes, they built this just for a week. What in the world are we doing here? The design is so tasteful. You guys can live with this. Thank you so much.
The mic on my friend David Senra's new show called David Senra, in which he interviews me. I've chosen for the last 5 or 6 years to never be interviewed, mostly because I love doing what I do so much. Shining a light on an investor, a founder, a thinker of some type who I can learn from. But after we did the show, and I thought it would be a neat and rare opportunity to share with you all how I think about
Championing underscored Darren, the Upanishads passage. Whoa.
a lot of things.
Growth without goals philosophy.
Build, invest like the best, Colossus, and positive sum. I really hope you enjoy this little bit different and special episode with David Senra.
Dining like dinner, privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. Oh wow. Oh wow. He's inspired by Carl Jung. Let's go. He likes Carl Jung. He likes Upanishads.
Please be sure to go check out.
Clean fuel, dirty fuel. Professional learners, the unfair advantage of podcasting. Relationships run the world. The original story of Invest Like the Best. Building Colossus. Learn, build, share, repeat.
His new show.
Learn, build, share, repeat. How reading books led to
He is
everything.
interviewing some of the greatest living thinkers, builders, entrepreneurs in the world, called David Senra. Make sure you go subscribe to that as well and enjoy the interview.
You have this almost obsession with finding talented but not well known or relatively unknown people. And then you essentially spend a lot of time talking to them, developing relationships, and then putting all of your resources behind that person.
Yeah.
What is going on there?
Well, for how my personality is wired, that is the most exciting possible thing to do, because it means I get to learn about a person and whatever they're doing before other people do, and I like that. I like being at the frontier of what's going on and learning things that aren't widely known. I just enjoy that. I read so much and I've spent my whole life just as a constant learning type person. So to find something fresh and new is very exciting to me, and you can usually do that with people like this. And then I've just learned about myself that by far my favorite thing in the world is championing other people. It's just what I enjoy doing. If I look back on my life, the sort of like wins that I've had, the things that if you were to write like a Wikipedia article about me would be like the accolades or the accomplishments. I don't care about those things. I don't think about them. When they happened, they didn't do anything for me emotionally or otherwise. For whatever reason, that's just not what I enjoy. But when your success happens, or when many other people that I and my team have championed have a win, I feel that deep in my like soul and heart and gut in a way that is just more gratifying to me than anything else in the world. And this extends to my kids, my wife, my friends, my, the CEOs of companies that we've invested in, people that we have on our show that we tell the world about. That's the repeated thing that I love. And I also kind of like picking sides. I like saying, I like this person, and by extension, I like them more than the other available options in this field or this industry or whatever. And I just get tremendous joy out of that. So now I'm architecting my life to just be able to do as much of that as possible. And I hope I get to do it for a long time.
I screenshotted this text. This was like many years ago. Somebody was asking me, can't remember who it was now, but they were asking me like what Patrick is like. And I was like, well, positive sum is definitely like a way to describe him. I was like, and he doesn't do things for money. Like that doesn't mean he's not commercial. Like he makes a lot of money. He's going to continue to make a lot of money, but that's like not the driver behind it. Let me go back to like one of the craziest days of my life has directly involved you, right? Like I was like in the middle of this like 5.5 year struggle of like being obsessed with something I know I truly cared and thought was really good, but the external world was like, no, like nobody gives a shit about what you're doing, David. And I kept doing it. And we have a mutual friend in Sam Hinkie who's going to keep getting annoyed because I bring him up on every podcast I go on. Because like
he's deserving of the mentions.
The 2 episodes he did with you, like especially the one about like find your people, I think is I go back to that one all the time and the notes that he says in there. And like one of the things I think about all the time, which again, I'm not an investor, but I want like access and I want deep relationships with people, very high quality people. And it's just like, he's like, people are power law and the best ones change everything. And so once you actually see that, you are very, almost like ruthless with who you let have access to. And I think I'm getting very ruthless and continue to be ruthless because of like what I'm, kind of chasing after. But I had like no followers on Twitter at all. And just like tweeting into oblivion, like no one gave a shit what I'm doing. And one day, this is why it's like one of the first things that I think speaks volumes about you and how you actually live your life. And like, I think you've now leaned into this more over the last like 4 years that we've been talking. And I'm like, see a bunch of notifications on Twitter. I'm like, I don't get notifications on Twitter. Like, what is this? The only time there used to be the same guy that had my name, and he was like a Brazilian MMA fighter. So when he would fight,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's like, no, but all the tweets are in Portuguese. So I don't know what they're talking about. It's just not about my podcast. And I almost remember verbatim. I should go and see how much I get the text inside the tweet, correct? Where you're like, I never find new podcasts to listen to. And that's like the best. It's like, people don't know. It's just like one of the most insanely valuable audiences in the world. If you could like sketch out the average net worth of listeners to this, it's just like mind-boggling. And we're about to see that in action with this story. And you're like, I never find new podcasts to listen to. I think David Sender's Founders podcast is excellent. You should listen to it. And you linked to an episode on Estee Lauder, which is one of my favorite ones.
I love that episode, yeah.
And you sent me a link. And so at the time, it was a paywalled podcast because I couldn't figure out the business model because I had no listeners. And back then I would get an email every time you had a new subscriber. There was not many emails coming in every day. I could count them on two hands, And I was like, first thing I did, the next day I log into my email and it's just a whoosh all the way down. Just like, no. But that is such an unusual instinct. If I'm being honest, like, I don't think I would have done that. What the hell is going on there? You didn't see it as a competition. You didn't. What was happening?
The first thing that flashes to my head is, in my show, I always ask people the same question at the end of what's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for you. Some person on Twitter or something went and compiled every answer. There's 500 answers or whatever, and categorized them and like made a pie chart of like what people say. And something like 2/3 of the answer to this question were the same, which was the kindest thing was some person made a bet on me, first answering the question, before I deserved it. Or like they saw something in me that maybe I didn't even see in myself. They bet on me before others would. And that was the answer to the kindest thing. And when I was 26, I became very interested in I studied philosophy early in life, and I've always been interested in that stuff. But I became really interested in the religious texts, like all the world's religious texts. And I was kind of, I was in a weird spot in life. I kind of hadn't found anything to do yet. I wasn't that good at anything. And I was searching. I was always searching for like, what the hell should I do? What the hell's the point of all this? And I found this passage in the Upanishads, which as a book is probably the most important book to me. And the Upanishads is this collection of stories from many a thousand.
Oh my God, Patrick, let's go.
Of years ago that were passed down orally through generations and then eventually written down. And I remember getting stuck on this one passage that literally felt like someone hit me in the face with a hammer. And there's a line in this passage that basically says something like those who feed the hungry protect me, those who don't are consumed by me. And it just felt like there was like a moment of understanding that happened in my head. But up until that point, from teenage, middle of teenage, I was consumed by me. And there's a line in this passage that basically says something like those who feed the hungry protect me, those who don't are consumed by me. And it just felt like there was like a moment of understanding that happened in my head. But up until that point, from teenage, middle of teenage, I was just a nice, sweet boy, and then I got kind of hardened and went through a period of life that was tough. And it like woke me up that the whole point of this is to help other people. That's it. That's the entire point of this existence. And from that point forward, that's been my worldview. And so I think it's interesting that like that's probably the thing that most informed my worldview. And then the answer to this question that I love to ask is predominantly someone bet on me. And like I told you before, the thing I love more than anything is like seeing the potential in somebody before everyone else, and then helping the world see what I see. Like if I could do one thing over and over and over again the rest of my life, it would be audition people to see if there's something that I see that no one else sees, and then help foster that and show everyone else what I think I see in a way that can be impactful in that person's life, which is what you described with our experience together.
I think in the probably hundreds, I don't know, thousand conversations we've had, I don't think you've ever described it in such an easy to understand and impactful way like you just did, where it's just like the whole point of this whole thing is just to help other people.
You said before you're chasing something, right?
Yeah.
I'm not chasing anything. I think it might be an interesting conversation today to talk about, how we view what we're doing in slightly different ways. But I have no goals. I'm not a goals person. I've written essays about not having goals. The most read thing I ever wrote back when I used to do a lot of writing was about, it was called Growth Without Goals. And so I'm not chasing any particular thing. I don't have a big, hairy, audacious goal or something like this. I don't want to put someone on Mars like Elon might, or, and I'm not to say that that's a bad thing. I think some people are goal-oriented and that's awesome, but that's not me. And I guess I've realized that if I have a goal in the abstract sense, it's just this thing over and over and over again. There's this amazing talk that I recommend everyone watch called Inventing on Principle. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
It was a talk given by a computer scientist named Brett Victor. And he espouses this idea that you should find a principle that you want to. His principle was digital creators should have instant feedback with their creation. So just like if you paint something with a paintbrush, you get instant feedback. You see the paint immediately. Whereas in computer science, you'd have to code over here and compile, and then you'd eventually see a result. There was this gap. And so his principle was collapse that gap. That was his life's mission. And I love that way of thinking about finding one's life's mission is find it like you see the paint immediately. Whereas in computer science, you'd have to code over here and compile, and then you'd eventually see a result. There was this gap. And so his principle was collapse that gap. That was his life's mission. And I love that way of thinking about finding one's life's mission is find a principle. Don't necessarily have a goal, but find a principle. And my principle is like when I see undiscovered talent, it is my obligation to do this thing, to get to know them, to learn from them, to start introducing them to people, I don't need to get anything out of it. Like what I get out of it is the thing. That's the point.
But you're one of the few people in the world that have actually identified this organizing principle and then built a wonderful business around that. And
Yeah.
I feel like the media, we've talked about this a million times, but like the media and investing are not two separate things. They're the exact, if you actually know Patrick and what is important to him, like they are the exact same thing.
It's taken me a long time to articulate that principle, a decade. And that's okay. Like don't get discouraged if you don't watch Brett Victor's talk and can't name your principle an hour later. Like it takes time. But you found your principle when it starts informing literally every decision you make every day with your time. And that's what it does for me. And it becomes universal. Like on my team, for example, we're 16 people, something like that. Now this is how I think about my team. It's like, who can I find and see something in and bring them in and then make their career explode, hopefully in an amazing way. And so it can be investing, it can be just in friendship, it can be on your team. Like a good principle can be applied everywhere. And that's why I think this idea is so powerful, to do the work to find your principle for invention. And I have no idea where it will take us. That's the other fun part. Is one of the reasons I don't like goals is I think very talented people, when they set a goal, they tend to do it. And that's why goals are interesting to lots of people, is it's a great way to make progress. But I find it unexciting because the second you set some big goal, you kind of know what's going to happen, because you go do it and you know the road in front of you and you have blinders on. And I don't actually like having blinders on. I like to go, everything that's ever worked for me has come out of the periphery. Sam Hinkie, text me about you. Like I wasn't looking for a podcaster to promote.
Yeah.
You were not the result of some goal that I was seeking. You were just something that like came out of left field. And everything interesting I've ever done came out of left field. And which is why I don't keep long-term goals or short-term goals, is that opportunity I'm very open to opportunity along this principle. And so I'm very enamored of this idea for how to live.
At what age did you stop having goals?
Well, this essay that I wrote, I'm 40 now. I wrote when I was 28, because I wrote it on the train. I used to commute back and forth from New York City to Stamford, Connecticut. And I was about to have my first child, my son Pierce. And my dad, when I was 21, handed me this book of letters that he had been writing to me since I was born. And a lot of them were when I was like a baby, and I've done the same thing for my son, and it's the same pattern. There's tons of letters in the first couple of years, and then it gets more spaced out, and now I do one on his birthday every year and things like this, and I'm going to give him a packet of letters as well when he turns 21. And I remember starting this process of wanting to write him a letter before he was born. And it got me wondering about like, what is good parenting? Like, what do I want to do as a dad? And I believe deeply in showing, not telling. Like I think maybe that's another reason I don't like being interviewed. I don't like telling. I'd rather just set an example. But I was thinking, what example do I want to show Pierce? And then I don't remember my exact train of thinking, but it ended up in this idea of everything I just talked about. So it was born of wondering, like, what example do I want my son to see and emulate? Because I'm sure you've learned this about kids as well. They don't do what you tell them. They do what you do. They just copy you. And so how you behave is how you parent. And I was thinking about that at age 28 and wrote this thing. And so that's where it came from. So right around then is probably the first time.
And then how long from 28 till you realized this is going to be the simple organizing principle of how I'm going to live my life and spend my time?
I actually don't think I could have articulated the principle as I just laid it out until very recently. So I could have told you about the power of Brett Victor's inventing on principle starting 10 years ago or whenever I first saw it, but I would not have been able to articulate the principle to you cleanly. And that's because it's hard. It's hard to pin, for whatever reason, it's really hard to pin this down. Interestingly, I've never met Brett Victor. If he's listening, I'd love to meet him. I owe him an enormous debt of gratitude for one of my bigger career successes, which was I took his principle, not my own, but his principle of instant feedback and applied it as the primary design principle to software that I built in my last business, which worked really well. The software itself worked really well. The business grew a lot because of the software, and the software worked well because of his principle of instant feedback on choices being made by the user, showing up in this case in a visual that described their portfolio. And so I actually, before I had my own principle, I stole his principle to great effect, which just goes to show the power of a great principle. But I couldn't have articulated it for a really long time, and I can't explain to you why that's the case. I don't know.
It's a great line from Alan Watts that I always think about. He's like, people think that life is meant to be understood, and it's like, no, life is meant to be experienced. And I find that in my own self. Like, I do think I can't explain. I have like a lot of really like foo-foo part of. I always say that line, you laugh, but like I have this like really foo-foo part of it. It's just like I just go off feeling, like an intuition for like a lot of things that I do, and like I don't want to have to like describe why I believe this to be true or why I want to like pursue this path or why I think this idea is interesting. I think it's just something inside of me that like language cannot describe.
I don't know if it was Alan Watts that said this. He had such a way with words that maybe it was him. It might have been Joseph Campbell, but something to the effect of we're not searching for the meaning of life, but for the feeling of being alive. And I think that's correct. And I think a great, if you play red light, green light with principle as you search for your...
Oh my god. You guys are talking about the same things that we got into. Wow. Okay.
Principle. I think you could do a lot worse than...
We got this exact quote from Joseph Campbell. Upanishads, he said Carl Jung, he said Joseph Campbell.
Knowing you're on the right path if the thing makes you feel more alive. Like if you go in the direction, and people know.
People are searching for
the feeling of being. I think he had such a way with words that maybe it was him. It might have been Joseph Campbell. But something to the effect of we're not searching for the meaning of life, but for the feeling of being alive. And I think that's correct. And I think a great, if you play red light, green light with principle as you search for your principle, I think you could do a lot worse than knowing you're on the right path if the thing makes you feel more alive. Like if you go in the direction, and people know what it's like to feel alive. They can call to mind these moments in their lives where they felt the most present and alive. And using those as a signpost to what your principle might be or what you should be doing, I think is a really great thing. And that's certainly how I remember that line, reading that line 15 years ago as well. And then starting to chase the feeling of being alive, not a goal, but just that feeling. And everyone can answer this question, by the way. It's a great way to have a conversation with someone, is to kind of ask them where they feel this, and then also why they're not doing more of whatever the answer happens to be, which is a funny circumstance of humans, that they kind of know what makes them feel most alive, and then they don't do it most of their lives.
That's a very interesting question. What's your guess on why they don't?
Usually it's simple, which is fear. Fear that by pursuing an original path, I have this idea that the best story always wins. And I actually spent the last couple of months really trying to figure out what do I think best story means. And the best principles for a great story that I could come up with were originality, hardship, and transformation. And if you dig into originality, that one is really interesting to me, because people don't pursue original paths usually because they're fearful of the unknown, because an original path by definition means it's all going to be on you. And that's uncomfortable and hard. And because an original path usually means leaving a very comfortable current existence in a way that's scary. And so I think when you really drill people on why not, they'll give reasons that add up to I'm afraid. And that's hard to get over.
You've said to me before that you used to be a masochist for introspection. First of all, when did that stop? And then do you think that helped you find this organizing principle for your life?
It definitely helped me find it, because I wanted to not waste life. When I was a little kid, young, 5 years old or whatever, I had this just crippling fear of death. Like, I remember my mom and dad would have to like sit and hold my hand for me to fall asleep at night. And the reason was I would just sit there like spiraling on this crazy idea, maybe this is why I studied philosophy, that like someday I would not exist. And that just freaked me out, and did for decades. So that probably kicked off this introspective period of my life where I was very curious about philosophical traditions and religious traditions and metaphysics and all this kind of stuff, because I wanted to know, what the hell is the point of all this? Like, what's the point? What's the meaning? What's the purpose? And otherwise it's just terrifying, right? That we're here for a blip and then gone. It's just terrifying. I try not to sit down and think about it too much. In fact, I'd like to move on. But that kicked off this period of, I wanted to understand myself and others. And so I was very introspective. And of course that made me want to not live a dull life. And I was very scared of just like living this train track existence. So yeah, it did help a lot. But interestingly, once I have clicked into, I think, understanding what I want to do, I don't think about it at all. And now I have very little introspection left in my life. I used to be so obsessed with all of these personality tests and what they mean, and psychology, and seeking, and like all the modern methods for doing that. And I've kind of just lost, not total interest, but I've lost a lot of my interest in that.
You solved the problem that you were using it, introspection was a tool, and then like you don't need to use the tool once the job is done.
Yeah, maybe that's right.
You mentioned earlier that we have different approaches, and then you want to talk about that. What do you think, like, I'm always curious, again, like some of the stuff I should not say on a podcast, but I'm always curious, like, people that know me well, like what is their interpretation of like their view of me that is different than my own? So like, what do you think my organizing principle is?
Your organizing principle?
If yours is just helping as many people as possible, and this is what life's about, and then you have all these resources to do so through media and capital and relationships.
Just to clarify, it's not helping as many people as possible. It is trying to see enormous, like not yet realized potential.
Okay.
And my principle is that when I do, it is my obligation. With nothing, maybe I invest, maybe I end up benefiting, but that's not the point. That it's my obligation to tell people about it and to help foster it into existence. So, important difference. Well, it took me a decade to state my organizing principle. I'm not going to be able to name yours in a minute, but you're probably the most single-minded and devoted to what they do person that I know, in the sense that most people that have achieved a level of success in their field or in their job that you have begin to branch. The world, when that happens, pulls you into this branching exercise where you end up doing lots of different stuff. And you end up monetizing in different ways, or going into different lines of business, or changing how you do things, expanding. The single-mindedness that you have is quite distinct from the people that I know. And why are you doing it? I think you've talked about this certainly in private with me, but also in public about, we came from opposite circumstances. Like I was born on proverbial third base, or sliding into home. I come from a history of extremely successful entrepreneurs. My great-grandfather, who had the best name ever, his name was Ignatius Aloysius O'Shaughnessy. Everyone called him IA. He was, I think, the 13th of 13 kids. He was one of the richest men in the United States. He was an oil wildcatter, first oil hole he ever drilled. I think still pumps oil to this day in the Midwest. And so he was a giant. He was broken up in the antitrust, the Rockefeller antitrust stuff around Standard Oil. And our family takes great inspiration from him, because he made this fortune. He did not give a shit about money. He didn't really spend it. He gave away basically all of it in his lifetime, mostly anonymously. My dad tells the story about being at his funeral when my dad was 11, and all these people were there, and no one knew who they were. And my dad would go up to one and be like, "Who are you?" and they would say, "Well, Mr. IA, I cut his hair and he put my kids through college and bought me a house," or "Mr. IA did this or this." And we didn't even know where it went. And I have benefited from this tremendous history of business success in and around my family forever. Whereas you came from a very different set of circumstances. Our friend Sam has this idea of there's founders of businesses and there's founders of families. And I think of you as the founder of your family. And I think that's incredibly powerful. And I think it's your greatest accomplishment that things repeat through the generations. You're fond of saying the story of the father and the son are the same. And it takes tremendous character, willpower, talent, lots of stuff to break from that family tradition and go a new direction, which you've done, which I just think is remarkable. And I don't know if that's the underlying why, that you refused to let your family continue to go the same direction that it had gone up until you were born. And you went, as Sam would say, and we talked about, you went searching for mentors because you didn't have them in your life. You found them in books and in founders, and you've been telling everybody about it ever since. And it worked. It worked for you to change your life. And now we know based on your work that your work is now changing other people's lives in that same way that you changed your own first, but you were the first beneficiary of it. And so what is your principle or why? I don't know, maybe it's that you don't have to just keep going the same direction that you were given. You can break off and found something new. I think that's pretty amazing.
I think there's a lot of times, I really resonate with what you said when you found that book and you're like, this paragraph, this sentence just like hits you with like a hammer to the face. Mm-hmm. This is also like, I use podcasts for this, reading mainly, it's like, I think people are rushing through things too fast. I'm famous for only listening to podcasts on 1x. Everybody's like, oh, you read a lot, you must read fast. I'm like, yeah, 25 pages an hour fast. Like, I'm not speed reading here. I think I want understanding. And like, I want understanding of how things actually are, not how humans say they are. And humans, not only are we lying to ourselves constantly, which if you're lying to yourself, like of course you're lying to other people about like why you're doing what you're doing or what you're doing, what it is that you're doing. And this is why I like autobiographies and biographies so much, because in many cases the person's like long past dead or they're older and they're just like, I'm writing this book when I'm 80. Like I'm not incentivized to lie. And like here's the stuff I went through and the trouble with whatever, being what kind of dad you are, trouble with women, trouble with business, which you realize like there's nothing that you're experiencing that somebody else hasn't already experienced. And so what I want is like true understanding of like humanity as it is, human nature as it is, and the world that we're creating. And then I use their stories. It's not really about them. It's like about you. And I think I don't think this has nothing to do with me. I think like when you watch a great movie, you hear a great story, you hear a great song, you're not thinking about like, oh, this happened to Taylor Swift. You're like, oh, I had that same experience in this relationship, or I went through this exact same thing. And it's like a form of understanding. Like I'm in the middle of this right now. We were just having lunch upstairs and, essentially like, I'm just like in the middle of like trying to find the story that I want to tell with this book that grabbed a hold of me for 6 months. And I told you about this is Bruce Springsteen's autobiography. I don't even listen to his music. And I told you about this right when I was like, there's stuff in this book that like this dude looks like he crawled inside of my mind. And like, especially in regards to how he views his work and the impact that it has on it. It's like, that is not a sentence. That is not a paragraph. That is like, that was made for me to read this at this point. And it's insanely powerful. And to the point where like, it's like a drug. I told you like right away, again, I need to like give you credit. We'll go back to this drug and understanding because like, I think it's really important about like people understanding why I want to talk to certain people and why like I was freaking adamant and like kind of pushing you on this. And we rescheduled a few times and like, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you. Not only because of the platform that you gave founders, right? The podcast, then that crazy episode that we did together, which I think is like, we're never like, that was like lightning in the bottle.
It was, yeah.
It's Invest Like the Best. The title is Passion and Pain. And, people are always like, oh, like, did you guys sketch this out? I was like, no, Patrick doesn't sketch things out like that. He's like, we built a friendship. I want you on the show. Like, I don't think you told me anything we're going to talk about. I do remember you texting me a few hours where it's supposed to do like 10 a.m. You're like, hey, I got pushed back. Can we do 1 p.m.? I'm like, oh no, my brain only works in the morning. So I took like a quick power nap and I'm in this booth. We didn't do video, but you can see me and I'm in like this phone booth that I put in my house that I was the only person, these phone booths are on these offices. And I had one, they came and delivered to my house and like, we've never delivered to somebody's house before. I was like, this isn't a phone booth. This is a podcast studio. This makes perfect sense to me. And then we just had the conversation, that was like a huge inflection point. Like that weekend that happened after, that was like one of the craziest weekends of my entire life. But then you pushed me for years. You're like, you should be recording conversations. You should be recording these conversations. What are you doing? And I was like, no, it's distraction. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then, I told the story a bunch, but I think like it's really important. Where like, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now at this very moment if me and you had this dinner with Daniel Eck in New York. It lasted 4 hours. I know you don't like when I tell you how long I talk to people.
This is one of David's quirks. He tells you how long he talked to someone every time.
Because I'm not.
I said this 4 hour lunch with those.
Yeah, because I'm not interested in superficial at all. Like, I can't tell you who it was. I just had dinner.
How long was it?
I'm going to tell you right now. But it was an incredible dinner the first time we met. And, it was unexpected, requested by them. And 3 hours into this person's like, I have told you things no one else knows about me. The very first time I met them. So it's just, I have no interest in the superficial, and I think you have to talk for a long time because it takes a little while to get like warmed up and like feel the person out. And this is why what you said earlier is so important. Like fewer deep relationships. Dude, think about the crazy conversation, which we're not gonna relive. But like me and you just had an insane 2.5 hour conversation in Tel Aviv at like 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. That to have that level of honesty and conversation, like you would have to have like years of like getting to know somebody. So I do think.
I also think you're providing people with sort of set of ingredients maybe through these episodes and conversations. But that it's important that people then go make their own recipe. Like you shouldn't just want to live like person XYZ. A lot of people you cover have the same pitfalls in their lives. And one might be tempted to think those pitfalls are just inevitable byproducts of success. But I hate that kind of thinking. I think like screw base rates. I don't care what I never care what the base rate is. Like the most interesting stuff is outliers by definition. So I don't care what happened to everybody else. I don't care if, there's common pitfalls. Like I think it's important that people make their own recipe from the ingredients that you've offered them from all these amazing and interesting lives that you've studied. And you're just doing that for yourself. Like that's been the search.
I think it is for myself. You are interested in other people and frankly in a way that I'm not. And I've seen it's like very real and it happens every time we're with other people together. I'm like, oh, he like actually wants to know. Where like I am on the search of like, how the hell do I not have a terrible life? This is why I think the skill set that gets you to where you are, like so many people plateau. And like I'm not interested in plateauing. I'm not interested in, mailing it in. Like I'm interested in I want to get to the end of my life. Like I don't want to tap dance on a giant reservoir of potential. I want like there was nothing more that I could have possibly done with my skill set and everything else. Like I want to figure out how to get the most out of that. And there's something you just said about like there's a line in this Bruce Springsteen autobiography where he's like, people don't come to rock shows or to concerts rather to learn. they come to remind them, for you to remind them of stuff they already know is true. And I think, yeah, you're going to learn, like, there's obviously creative ideas on how to build a company in a 400-page biography of somebody. But what you're going to realize is just like, there's a lot of stuff that you already know and you know is true. And either you haven't applied it, or you forgot it, or you did it for a little bit and you need a reminder. This is why you always describe founders, like, it's church. It's church for entrepreneurs.
In that church, I think the animating, interesting question is, you read these stories, all of which back to my idea of originality, hardship, transformation, best story wins. That originality is, you're inspiring people to wonder, what's my thing? Everyone's got something, I guarantee it. Like, it's my favorite thing to search for in conversation, especially if someone's not yet doing it, which is kind of the same search for unrealized potential or something. Everyone has a thing that, for whatever set of reasons, their life experiences, how they're wired, their naturally endowed gifts. And searching for that thing is really interesting and really hard. And I think that's what Founders continues to do for me, is show me examples of people that went to the trouble to find their thing, and then once they found it, foster it the rest of their life. And again, once you find your thing, the second thing is hardship. It's not supposed to be easy. Like, nothing meaningful is easy. And that's fine. And then once you learn that, I think that's when it gets really fun. Is that I always have this feeling, the second something just feels easy and I'm kind of going through the motions, I get really uncomfortable and want to try to push myself in some new way. But I think that's what Founders does so well, is it shows, it's what, back to the very beginning of our relationship and why I sent that tweet out and why we talked to each other for an hour the first time we talked. It's because it was so unique and so different and inspiring. So I think that's a powerful thing to do for people.
I think when I say, it's like, what's my organizing principle? It's like, I want to understand things. Or I want to understand, not things, I want to understand people. And to understand people, you have to, like, go deep and, like, what happened, like, where were you born? What was going on? Like, what was this experience like? You have to just spend a lot of time asking them questions and having these, like, long, deep conversations. And I don't think, there's a handful of people that I feel I truly know. It takes a long time. It takes, at least 100 hours of conversation, on the low end.
You said organizing principle, which I think that's correct. Just to push, because this can now be something we talk about for the next couple of years, which is probably how long it'll take to articulate. That's different than what is your principle for invention. So back to the idea of inventing on principle. The principle should be something that when you see it violated, it is your obligation to go correct it, and that correction is an act of service for other people, not for yourself. It's not about you. And that's what makes the idea so powerful. I agree that that's your organizing principle. That's like the thing behind why you're doing what you're doing. It will be fun to try to pin down what the principle is for invention, because that's what you're doing. You're making new things, which is the most fun and rewarding experience of a lifetime. And I remember the little opening quote in this compilation of his life's writing by Joseph Campbell that was done by his niece or something. The little opening quote in the book is, "The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are." And the people that make things that are the most interesting, those things are a reflection of themselves. That's the most sustainable form of creation. If you can sort of spill yourself onto the thing you're making, which benefits others, the thing, being of service to other people in some way, I think that's the thing that I think that's what we're all after. I think what we all want is to participate in the act of creation in a small way that reflects the act of creation going on at a grand scale. And to have that experience of, in so doing, by pouring oneself out into the thing and then having the thing be of service to others, that's an amazing feeling. And it's hard to get going, but once you do, I don't know anybody, I've never met anybody that's had that experience and gone back. Not once. And it's because I think it's the thing that we're all after, and that's what you're doing too with the show.
I think, like, one of the biggest things I want to avoid is, like, finding the thing, doing the thing, being great at the thing, and then, like, something you do causes that to stop. Where, like, I'm kind of obsessed with, like, this sustained success. Like, I don't want to, have these huge spike. I don't want to flame out. Like, I'd rather just do, like, the slow build, decade after decade, get better, and, like, keep doing it. This is why essentially I read fiction and I read biography. Like, that's basically what I read. And, like, the biography part is like, okay, what happens after they got what they wanted? And the conversations I've been having, a lot of these have been having on camera, but off camera, I'm always asking, because most of these people are older and more experienced and obviously more successful, smarter, and everything else. It's just like, what do I have to worry about? Like, what am I not seeing that could, like, cause me to stop? Like, I like what I'm doing. I love it. What am I doing that would cause it to, like, for me to not be able to do that? And there's, like, interesting, like, human questions about this.
Well, the trap is, before you do the work to figure out the thing that makes you feel alive, there's this great line in the Upanishads that it's always referred to abiding joy, like joy that doesn't run out. You don't use it up. There's this great line in the Upanishads that it's always referred to abiding joy, like joy that doesn't run out. You don't use it up like you use up so many resources. As you use it, you get more of it. That's abiding joy. The target for most people becomes the traditional money, power, fame, because those are worldly proxies for success that we all recognize and are for sure to some degree true. It's hard to get a lot of those three things without being successful in some way. I think those things are huge traps, because they become, once you start to get one, it's the thing you start chasing, and it's different than chasing the feeling of being alive, that abiding joy of feeling alive that we talked about earlier, which you'll never run out of. That will always guide you well, always. And money, power, fame will not. And so I think the answer to your question, or your worry, is just like, make sure you're chasing the feeling of being alive and that the intuition around that, and you'll be fine. And it's when we get sucked, and I've, of course, have, just like everybody else, like, I've been intoxicated by those three things at various points in my life, and that's because they're intoxicating. It feels really good the first time you have a lot of one of those things.
You're over fame, though. You don't like it.
Yeah, I don't. I think it is, I wish I could do what I do, and you know that thing in Men in Black where they flash you in the face? I wish, like, at the end of each of my episodes, like, flash people in the face and they forgot who I was and they didn't recognize me.
I've been thinking about this lately. It's like, what I actually, you have limited time that you're, like, every day, like, where do I, like, spend this? And it's like three things. health, work, relationships. I can't think of anything else that I care deeply about. Health has to come first because if we are sick or we have no energy, like we can't do anything else. But other than that, like if you look at like how I spend my time, it's essentially just like I'm creating work that I hope it makes somebody else's life better, that I truly am like the abiding joy, like chasing that. And then I'm just deeply interested in a shocking way of like having really strong relationships with other people. And like, I was not like that 10 years ago.
My experience, actually, I would disagree with the order. I had tremendously bad health problems for a long time, and I don't anymore, thankfully. But I'm convinced, I'm certain, that the reason is that I finally got my work and my relationships correct. And that when you're doing something you love and have great core relationships, all of a sudden, magically, your health gets way better. And during that time when I had lots of health problems, I ate unbelievably well. I worked out every day. I did everything you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then some. I was crazy about it. I kept daily logs of all this stuff. Like there's nothing I didn't try. There's no willy foo-foo thing that I didn't explore. I tried everything to solve some of these problems, and I couldn't solve them. And at one point, I felt resigned. It's just like, I guess, like I'm just one of those people that's going to be sick in life. Like that's just how it's going to be for me. And it cannot be coincidence that when I finally started doing the thing that I think I was meant to do with my life, and spend all my time with the people and focused on the relationships, that all of a sudden my health got better. So now, of course, I still invest a lot in my health. I'm not arguing with the three key things, but I found that an interesting experience. I'm like, the body keeps the score.
Your finance team isn't losing money on big mistakes. It's leaking through 1,000 tiny decisions nobody's watching. Ramp puts guardrails on spending before it happens. Invest. It's in real outputs. Check them out at rogo.ai. Use WorkGit, the unglam,
Because this is something that
focus on your product.
the fame part is interesting because this is something that like you uniquely understand and I can talk to you about. It's like, it's not to be known for the sake of being known. Like these like reality TV show people, that's weird. Like I want my work to be so good that it can't help but like become known and like talked about and like spread because they find value in it. It is just human nature. Like if you find value in a song, a movie, a book, a podcast, like no one keeps that to themselves. A restaurant, like we're compelled to tell other people about the things that we like. What I would say is like the reason I think I view it differently than you, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or whatever, it's just like, not even wrong, but like it's the relationships that you get to build as a result of you being easy to understand to other people. So like no one's gonna stumble upon any of my work and be like, what is this guy actually interested in? Like it's like very like quite clear. Yeah, it's quite clear, very obvious. And then if you think there's like some kind of like unique insight, but my point being is just like, I think this comes down to a principle of like, oh, like why are all the people that I've studied, either a conversation with or read about, it's like why are they great at what they do? And it has to do with, I do think the most fundamentally important thing that you do in life is choose who's around you. Of course, like your friends, people you work for, like your company is the people that like that you are able to recruit and to build. And so like what I couldn't understand is like I was not interested at all in relationships with other people. I would say like 10 years ago, somewhere like there, where now it's like I invest a ton in that element. I think it's like the part, I'm very excited about my work, that's never diminished, but like, I think it's the part that I'm most excited about and have been for like quite a while.
Well, because of course, on your deathbed, that's what you're going to be thinking about, not your 5,000 podcasts. You're not going to lie there and think.
But that's surprising to me, Patrick. Like, this is why this freaking Bruce Springsteen book is like messing with me so much. It's because I'm seeing this. He's 66 when he writes it, 67 something like that. Now he's like 76, and I just heard him on another interview talking about it, where the first half of the book is like this guy like has one of the most insane work ethics that you've ever seen, and it's channeled into one thing, and he has no doubt since he was 15 that this is what he's going to do, and he realizes that he does not have the skill set, or he has all these things that he has not developed skill set to handle. Like I'm just gonna like try to like explain this. I mean, I just recorded a whole podcast about it, so maybe like this will hopefully make sense. It was surprising to me that this man, who is psychopathically obsessed with professional achievement and fame and stardom and all the stuff that he was very upfront about what he wanted from a young age, okay? He gets it, which I'll get to in a minute. And his final realization is life is more important. Work is a part of life. It is not my full life. Life is life. It is important. And his biggest struggle was he becomes famous. This is what Jimmy Iovine told me because like I got to meet him. And right when I was leaving his house, he's like, you need to go watch the new Bruce Springsteen movie. And it's called Delivery Me From Nowhere. And I thought it was gonna be like a biography of his life. That's not what it's at all. It is like a dark, I was shocked, dark movie. This is the key to understanding. Unbelievable, like terrible environment born into. There's gonna be two actions there. You're just like, this is what life is, I'm gonna accept it, or you're going to have this like maniacal will to change things. He has a maniacal will, and he's like, I don't wanna live like that. His dad was one of the worst human beings to him. He takes all that pain, channels it into a work ethic that gets him exactly what he wanted, gets what he wants, which is now everybody knows who he is. He's worldwide famous, he's rich, everything. And then immediately drops in his mid-30s into the deepest depression of his life. And what he realizes is, that's not what I actually wanted. And this is what it goes by. I think I told you this upstairs, or maybe I mentioned this. Like, I had a very interesting conversation dinner last night, and it started with, what is the lie that you're telling yourself? And me and another person going around that for quite a while. And it was very fascinating. And the lie that Bruce was telling himself was that work was the most important, that becoming a rock star was the most important, fame was the most important. And what he realizes is that his parents had so messed up his emotional well-being, he was incapable of doing the thing that he wanted. In his case, he desperately wanted to have kids, to be married, to break the chain, like we mentioned earlier, of like, my kids will not experience what he experienced. And he was even writing, he has a whole album fantasizing about this before he's able to do it. And what he would run into the same thing where like, it's gotta be such a crazy juxtaposition of like, he's on stage in front of 40,000 people, they all love him. And yet, like in his case, he talks a lot about women in the book. He would get close to a woman, he'd have some kind of feelings for her, she'd have feelings for him back, okay? Then he immediately goes, why do you love me? Like, I am so fucked up and undeserving. So the fact that you love me means there's something wrong with you, and I'm going to hurt you because you love me. And then he'd run away, and then he'd get into another relationship, and he'd go over and over and over again. And he didn't realize the source of his depression was he didn't know what he actually wanted, and he didn't have the skill set. And then he winds up meeting the woman. He's married, by the way. He winds up meeting another woman who's in his band and getting divorced because he realizes like this is the person that can like I'm willing to do the work necessary to fix, which is like a crazy thing. And then he goes through 25 years of therapy, and in some cases he has to get on antidepressants, and like he's unbelievably honest from what took place is like from 35 until 67 when he's writing his book. And so I think there's all kinds of lessons in there from personal, like what do you actually want in your personal life, like the kind of relationships you want with friends, romantic partners, whatever the case is. But this is what I meant about like I want to make sure I develop the skill set not just to stay where I am. And you've pushed me in this direction a million times. You're like, stop doing everything yourself. Like we have a million conversations. You're just like, why don't you have a team? Why don't you do all this? It's like, it makes sense why I don't have a team, because I don't fucking trust anybody. Like that's obvious, like why that is. And I do think I'm like getting better and better and better to like even the stuff me and you talk about. Like 10 years ago, there's zero chance I would have let that come out of my mouth. Zero.
I mean, you tell Bruce's story, but I think you're talking about yourself to a large degree.
I know.
And maybe my arrival at the aspiration, and by no means perfect, to be more service-oriented. My grandmother, who just passed away, she was 99, banged on me. Every time she'd see me, this would be the topic of conversation. She's like, yeah, congratulations on all the all the success. Like, who gives a shit? Like, what are you doing for other people? That's what I want to know. And I'm convinced that's the way out. That I think I, like you, and like so many listening, have their set of demons that they've struggled with, and the path out is others. Simple as that. And it sounds like Bruce, I don't know Bruce, I'm not a huge Springsteen fan. I need to read the book, obviously, but that seems like a tale as old as time.
But this is something I learned from you, this idea of making sure that your source of fuel and energy and ambition is generative and not negative. And I do think like the conversation I've had with you, with Sam Hinkie, it's really important. It's like I'm getting to the point where like I push myself because I love it. I'm way nicer to myself than I have ever been because I'm like, oh, this doesn't serve me anymore. Like I'm not going like I will be successful because I love it, and if I love it, I'll do it all the time. If I do it all the time, I'll get really good at it, and if I get really good at it, money will come as a result because it's an active service.
Yeah, right? The clean fuel, dirty fuel debate is really interesting. And look, nearly all of the books that you've read were people that were fueled by dirty fuel. Dirty fuel works really well, but it consumes the person in a way that I would far rather die.
I think this is very interesting. We'll slowly see David Sunra move from people who are consumed by dirty fuel versus people who are consumed by clean fuel. And this was one of the reasons why I was really happy to see Rick Rubin, see David Sunra cover Rick Rubin, because there's a difference between how David Sunra talks and he started talking versus how Rick Rubin talks. And I think that was a stark difference between how David Sunra talks and the person he was covering on his channel. And I think this is going to be very interesting. This is going to be very interesting to see the next evolution of David Sunra when he moves from dirty fuel to clean fuel.
Nobody knowing who I am with no worldly, success, but having people that could count on me, rely on me, I was faithful to, that I was loyal to. Like that's what I want at the end. So if you can work backwards from that, that's another cool way to think about it. Like working backwards from what you hope is true is a simple heuristic for finding what to do well. And I think I can't wait to read the book.
This is why I think reading a bunch at the same time, or not at the same time, but like having a lot to pull from, is like I'm reading the Bruce Springsteen book, but then you realize like another person with like superhero work ethic and drive and ambition was the LBJ, which Robert Caro brilliantly writes about. And you realize Bruce is generative. It took him a while to figure it out, but like he got out on the other side of that where LBJ never did. And even though their sources are very similar, like there's a great story that Robert Caro tells in one of his books where like LBJ finally gets to Washington. I think he's like an intern. I don't remember what job he has. He has no money. It's cold. And it'd be like the sun would be coming up at like 5:30, and this woman that worked with him would always see him like running everywhere. And they just assumed, oh, he's got no coat, he got no money, he's like running to warm himself up. And then the summer comes, and he's still running. And obviously Robert Caro was a master with words and storytelling. And his whole point is like, of course he was running. He like finally made it to the spot. Because he was talking about, we want to be president since like third grade or something. He's like, he finally made it to the city, to the spot where all his dreams are. And like he was going to run after his dreams. There's so much in between these two stories. One guy's a rock star, one guy comes president of the United States. And it's the same thing. One is generative, one is unbelievably manipulative, and probably not a guy that you like want in your life to be around. And so I think also learning from like great examples, but almost like saying like, oh, I don't want to be that way. This is like something like one of the best things about like our friendship is like I actually want to like let people in. Like I want to have friends and like deep friends. And in the past, like that wasn't an important like thing to me.
Agreed.
This conversation is now therapy for Dave. But this is my point. Was like when I went to sit down with you, like there's a bunch of things I want to talk about, but it's like I also want to like kind of like talk about the stuff that like we normally talk about. The reason I think it's important for like me and you too is like how much of our ideas actually came from the creation of the podcast. Like you think about all the different ideas and topics and things that you've learned as a byproduct of just making this thing. And then the unfair advantage that we have is essentially like we like professional learners. You know, like you get to study somebody, you get to have a multi-hour conversation with them, and like, oh wait, he said that or she said this. Like I'm gonna take that idea. Who have you grabbed ideas from? And like who do you let like influence the way you think?
I mean, how long you got? I could easily rattle off 50 people.
Let's take one, like just some of the most important ideas and where they came from.
To take the simplest example possible, in the early days of the show, this is a very like practical, real world example. If you take the ideas that I got from Daniel, who you mentioned before at Spotify about how to build software, from Brett Victor, who I mentioned before about his principle for great software and what it looks like, and from a guy named Chetan Pudigunta at Benchmark, one of the partners at a very storied investing firm called Benchmark, who taught me how to sell software. Just those three guys. I basically just stole their ideas and applied it to my situation, and it worked to a spectacular degree. I didn't know anything about software. I'd never built software before. I had an amazing team at the time that was able to pull it off. But the direction of the resources and what to do strategically just came from asking those three are three of the greatest in the world at what they do. How do I do this to somebody that can help me? And then not thinking too hard about what they tell me and just doing it and having it work. And so there's a tiny example, 3 people. And
did you have all 3 on your podcast?
Two I've never met Brett.
Okay, so 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
These ideas came from conversations that you had on the podcast?
No, I didn't ask them this stuff on the podcast, but in time spent just offline with them, I'll never forget. I was in Benchmark's office in San Francisco, showing Chaitin the demo. I'd show him the demos, and it was amazing. He gave me feedback. They weren't an investor in my business or anything. He was just doing it out of just the goodness of his heart, I guess. And same thing with the others. There's many more than 3 people that contributed to that project that influenced me and taught me things. But yeah, mostly just offline asking questions. But I did interview Chaitin several times and Dan several times.
This goes back to the beneficial nature of relationships. You start out as okay, I had a conversation with them, and then if there's some kind of mutual respect, you build a relationship. Right now, we're filming. This is the first podcast ever filmed at the Aman in New York. Yeah. You try to email the Aman in New York and ask them if they might set up and film a podcast here for free. That's not going to happen. That happens because of the personal relationship that I have with a friend of mine who is involved with Aman. This is why I would say relationships run the world, and our jobs are essentially learning and then taking what we learned and packaging it for the consumption of somebody else, for an easy way for somebody else to consume and benefit from that learning, whether it's a conversation, a book review, or whatever the case is. So that's very practical. That was in the early days when you were doing Canvas, right?
Yeah.
What about larger things in your life? Who do you think had an impact? My life would not be the same if not for that one conversation, that one idea with that person.
2 people came to mind right away. The first is Herb Allen from Allen Company, who I don't know well. These lessons came from one incredibly interesting conversation about my sense of him, again, don't know him well, is that he is uncompromising in his values. He's maybe the apex predator of the thing I want to do, which is picking and supporting people. I think that's what he's done for a really long time with unbelievable success. And that he is so incredibly uncompromising about how he does that, and willing, I won't tell the examples, but I think willing famously to throw away huge commercial opportunities just because the person wasn't who he wanted to support. So sometimes it's literally a conversation with a person that just smacks you in the face and makes you feel validated maybe for what you're trying to do. There's a gentleman named Reese Duca who's very, very private, and there's no content about him or interviews with him. I wish to God he would let me interview him. I know he never will. Who has been incredibly impactful on at a philosophical level. He has all these amazing little phrases, but his life kind of boils down to simplicity, the beauty of simplicity. He gave me this line one time: simplify your life with rhythm and harmony. And that line is what you're talking about: fewer, deeper relationships, fewer things, better, everything aligned with what gives you energy, listening to your own.
Wow. Okay.
The feeling of aliveness. He lived that to a degree that's rare, that I've never seen. So I literally could rattle names. A gentleman I spend a ton of time with now named Jesse Beirudi, who I am with basically every day, who also I think has no interest in fame or accolades or recognition, but I think is one of the great, will go down, I would predict, as one of the great investors ever. And he's like Reese, he's completely uncompromising in the most principled way of living I've ever seen. Just refuses to get sucked into the game. And I could rattle off names for hours and hours. There's so many people that have influenced me. And that's what makes this all fun. That's what makes what you and I do so fun is I'm inspired constantly. And you're doing this new show. I interview people once a week, but really I interview 10 people a day. That's what I do. I just happen to have mics there one of the times. If I'm doing it 40 or 50 times a week, which is not an exaggeration, it really is that many people every week. Just who are you? What's your deal? I love doing that. And so there's just too many to name, but those are a couple that came to mind.
Munger said, I'm paraphrasing, but he's one of the best ways to learn is you find somebody that's kind of an outlier and you just ask what the hell is going on with this person?
Yeah.
And you just keep asking that question, trying to get deeper and deeper and deeper, but reverse engineer what they're doing and why they're really successful. There's another fascinating thing where there's this meme where everybody has a podcast now and everybody starts podcasts. And as soon as that takes hold, you've been doing podcasting for 10 years and you decide, no, I'm going to go in a different direction. And majority of our conversations, I would say now, are not even about the podcast. They're about these profiles that you're writing on Colossus. Some of them have been so incredible that I actually use them as source material for a founders episode, which I think we should do more of those collabs because I was they're really well written, kind of doing my job for me. Yeah. Why did you decide to do that?
I'm in the abstract very interested in how can I create and control valuable, scarce units of attention and then dole those things out to the people that we believe in. At a very high level, the reason we now have a magazine, which on its face I think everyone would have agreed was a stupid idea, or told me it was a stupid idea when we started it. Why are we doing these profiles that take months or quarters or years to write and require lots of investment? Why do them? Well, the reason is I think it's just a beautiful way to shine the light beyond podcasting on people that we admire, and to teach the world about a compelling founder or a compelling investor or artist or whatever. And the thing that I didn't realize was that because I'm not writing the profiles, our amazing team is writing them, it would actually be a double whammy. That not only when we started doing this, I went and read David Remnick, who's the longtime editor for the New Yorker, and New Yorker profiles were always my favorite growing up. These incredibly detailed, amazing, well-written profiles. He wrote in the introduction to this his compilation of his favorite New Yorker profiles. There's this line that says the best profiles over the last 100 years are defined by somebody doing a thing they're obsessed with and a writer that is as obsessed with the person as the person is with the thing. And I remember reading that paragraph and just thinking, wow, I want to read. That's what I want to read. And so I went and I read a million profiles, and the very best one I read was in a publication called Tablet on Palmer Luckey from Andrew. And I reached out to the author. His name is Jeremy Stern, who's now the editor-in-chief at Colossus. And the rest of that story is sort of history. He joined. We've got other people that have joined or are joining to write these profiles. And it just felt like, wow, this is another way to do the thing we love to do, which is to find the person, become obsessed, learn everything about them, take great time and pain to write a definitive thing about them and then share it with millions of people. And the one that we wrote about Josh Fisher and Thrive was one of these like bizarre break the internet moments when it just like completely took over the internet for a while. And I remember reading it the first time, and I was like 45 minutes into reading it, and I was still reading about the Holocaust. And I don't think anyone else would take that risk in a profile of Josh and his family and his team, but it was so important to understanding the soil out of which his family and eventually he emerged. And Jeremy, also the writer, was the product of Holocaust survivors himself and knew a tremendous amount about Josh's family history because it was also his family's history. And I thought that was the coolest, most beautiful thing. I never wrote so this project has become an excuse to, first of all, find more talented people, the writers, that we can support, which is great. See the potential, same thing we've been talking about over and over again. So now team members become more people that we can do the supporting thing with, and for them to write things they're obsessed with and passionate about, and then for the rest of the world to benefit, for the people being profiled hopefully to benefit. If we tell the honest stories and we want to tell the hard parts and the interesting parts, and it's been successful beyond what I ever could have imagined. And I think it's important to note, like when I started with the first idea, everyone said it was a stupid. I mean, literally everybody said it was a stupid idea. When I started the podcast, everyone said it was a stupid idea. When we started Canvas, everyone said. I think like if people say something's a good idea, I always get a little nervous because if it sounds like a good idea, it just feels you're in a more competitive space. It's going to be harder. I think the key is stuff that sounds dumb but isn't. And I think that's what I would, starting a magazine in 2025, I think falls in that category of sounds dumb. Magazines are dead or dying. But the thing underneath it was this desire to have more ways to do the thing that we love to do, which is find people, learn about them, tell the world about them. I suspect it won't be long until that's much bigger than even the podcast, which itself is very, very big.
The surprising thing is I think you want that to be the case.
What specifically?
Colossus being bigger than the podcast.
Of course.
That's not an of course thing. You got to unpack that. You got to explain why you feel that way. I know you don't know how other people view you, but I get a lot of this because they know of our association. Like they're like, this is the best, business interviewer in the world, and this is incredible. Like, why would he not want that to be the biggest thing?
I'm not saying I want to keep doing that.
I know that
for sure. I love
but
it.
I think in your heart, if you had to choose, you'd like, no, I'd rather have the profile to be bigger because you like again. So it's like how we started the conversation.
Yeah.
Like I really do believe you'd like to be the guy behind the guy.
That's true. But the reason for me is like almost so obvious that it's uninteresting, which is, well, if a bunch of other talented people are doing this and then creating these things, first of all, I'll have more of them so I can enjoy them more. And I'll get to enjoy it just like everybody else. Like I can't tell you how fun it is to get the first draft of one of these things in Slack. Like the things that make me the most giddy in my work are some new draft that they've created for Colossus and some new research report on an investment created by my incredible team on that side, who in many ways are just doing turtles all the way down. Like it's the same like deep investigation, publishing, writing, clear thinking. When I get one of those two things in the morning, sometimes there's days where I have several of them, those are the best days. And so selfishly, I would just love a world where I'm not needed at all, because that means we're creating more of them. Obviously, I'm limited by my own bandwidth and time. I'll always do interviews. I hope it gets bigger and bigger. And I don't want to like fade into the sunset, but I hope this is much bigger because that means I get to hire more incredible, talented people and hopefully put them on a career trajectory that's the best it could possibly be. And that's incredibly gratifying. I get to read more of these things. I get to do this thing that we love to do for more people and point the light that we're trying to cultivate on more and more talented people. That's like unbelievably exciting. I hope it's not just writing. I hope it's documentary. I hope it's who knows where it goes. I hope we start convening people in small situations where meet this person. Like that to me is the most fun thing in the world. And so a world where it's no longer rate limited by my time and energy is much more exciting than a world where it's me. And so yes, I would vastly prefer that all the rest dwarf whatever I do, even though I hope what I do lasts forever and is big itself.
I don't remember the first time you brought up this idea to me. Like what? Now it seems obvious in hindsight, right? Because people have been reading profiles.
Now everyone's launching a magazine. It's going to be like podcasts.
But not that, like specifically profiles, where like people have been reading. Like you mentioned, I bought that book too that you told me about, the New Yorker.
Yeah.
Like people have been, they're always interested in people. I remember reading Larry Ellison loves pick fights, and he thought it was like really good. And he didn't like the fact that Oracle, he had no media strategy for Oracle, and he's like, Oracle is just compared to other database companies, and I don't like that. I want to be compared to the best companies in the world.
Yeah.
It's like almost like this idea me and you bond over that we both learned from Jared Kushner, Constant Refinement Association. So he's like, I don't want to be compared to Seabass or any of the, or whatever, how you say, like these other state, what is it?
That's from Dumb and Dumber.
But I don't know. I don't know what it's called. All my
David, not an investor. Podcast.
There you go. Forever. All my vocab comes from the written word. So, everybody makes fun of me because all my DMs are like, you mispronounced this word. It's very obvious, buddy. But his whole point is like, I don't want to be associated with these people. I want Oracle to be in the same vein as IBM or Microsoft. And so he's like, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to pick a fight with Bill Gates and Microsoft. And he does this huge fight. And originally he thought that it was going to be, Microsoft versus Oracle. And he's like, but people are interested in personalities more than they're interested in companies or technologies. So it became billionaire A versus billionaire B, and it greatly elevated his profile. And then he said Oracle and Oracle's products were came along with the increase. So the reason I bring that up is because people are fascinated with profiles of other people. We're fundamentally more interested in other people and like what they can teach us about ourselves and anything else. What were you thinking? Because like that was something that existed forever. And who writes great profiles now? I don't even see any of them.
That's the other part that's exciting is because I like things that are really hard. Okay, so originally hardship. We didn't talk as much about hardship. I think you've been talking a lot about doing something that's different just because it's different. I would add on, which I think is interesting and correct. But I would add on to that, like it should be different and really hard, like really hard to do. And if I'm sampling all the profiles we've written in my head, some of them are ridiculously hard to write. Not only because of all the hours and work that has to go into it and the talent as a writer that has to go into it, but sometimes it's sensitive parts of the person's life that's never been written about and they've never talked about, and maybe they don't want to talk about it, they don't want you to talk about it, and it's the coaxing it out of them, and that takes time and trust. And so the thing I can't wait for is the profile that we write 10 years from now that we start working on today. we have this idea, which we started to do, where we just ask people, can I just have lunch with you once a year? I'm not gonna do anything with it. Just like, I just want to start collecting the line. And maybe we'll write something in 10 years, So things that are really hard to make are really interesting to me. And I think people stop doing profiles because they're really hard to make. They take time. The business model kind of sucks. Like the pay is terrible. Profile writers are not paid well. The world went a different direction. It's much cheaper and faster to make a stupid fucking TikTok than write a 50-page profile about someone that's careful and intricate and well written. And I believe, you and I certainly talk about this all the time, the world is desperate for some stuff like that. The world is so sick of this crap, just all day, every day. It's just crap. And everyone makes the junk food comparison because it's a perfect comparison. Like, junk food got to where it was because it's been optimized for us to want the most of it possible. Whether or not it's good for us, it's obviously horrible for us. It's the same thing with most content. And everyone knows this in their gut. And we all want something more carefully created. And I think profile might be perhaps the ultimate expression of that. If a documentary is like the ultimate profile, maybe that's even harder than writing a profile. But yeah, I'm interested in stuff that's very hard to make and that's singular, that can't be easily copied. And the literal answer to your question, it's kind of funny, was somebody, I'm actually seeing in Monday, gave me the idea to potentially buy this existing magazine. And we didn't buy it because I like to create our own things primarily. But it was notable to me that this magazine, which had been around for a long time, had all these incredible, I'd never heard of the magazine, and it had all these incredible people on the cover. And I thought, this is strange. Like, why are these people doing this magazine that no one's ever heard of? Big names. And it dawned on me, I was like, oh, it's the cover. Like, people can't say no to a cover. And so I tested that theory out, and it was true. And I think what that means is it's like the ultimate form of spotlight and attention that you can give to somebody. And so that's what got me actually literally spinning on, like, oh, maybe I would love to have a cover that I could dole out.
Did that idea come before or after you read Jeremy Stern's piece on Palmer Luckey?
Before. So I was then on the hunt. And this is another idea that you and I talk about often, which is, if you want to hire someone for a thing, just go consume as much of the thing made by a million people as possible. Whoever made the best one, go for them. There was this funny conversation during COVID. An investor friend of mine, one of the great investors ever, who's now retired, was part of the Zoom conversation. And it was the topic of the conversation was attributes of great founders. And at some point, someone goes, well, maybe it'd be easier to think about them not as founders, but as inventors. And everyone thought, oh, it's a cool idea. Okay, let's talk about them as inventors, not as founders. And then someone said, well, what are the attributes of a great inventor? And people started, this. And this one investor's face started contorting. And you could just see that he was frustrated by all these answers. And it got to him. And he was like, morons, who cares? Did they make a good invention? If the invention is good, the inventor is probably good.
Yeah.
And so I think you and I have taken that approach to, I certainly have to find people, like, just look at what they did. If they're Jeremy wrote the best profile that I read. Turns out he's a great profile writer. Like, he's written 10 more and we'll write 100 more. Like, so I was then on the hunt after we had this idea to go, now, okay, now let's go find the best people to do this thing.
As your business grows, Vanta scales with you, automating compliance and giving you a single source of truth for security and risk. Learn more as faster growth.
Case. In fact, I was shocked. People vastly underestimate the importance of volume. Like, whatever you're into, just be into it more than anybody else, and like, you'll be able to tell like what is a good idea, what is a bad idea. It's like this constant refinement of case. In fact, I was shocked at the way your profile started with about Josh Fisher, where it was like this visit to Rick Rubin's house. And I'm a huge Rick Rubin fan. Like, I read a biography on him. I think it's like episode 245 Founders did that. I think some of his interviews and stuff he says in an interview, it could be a 3-hour conversation, and you just hear like, there's like a 45-second clip that makes everything, like, it just makes perfect sense on like, I needed to hear that whole 3-hour conversation just to get that 45-second clip, that 45-second idea in my head. But if you think of like, the guy started, his record company in like 1984 in his dorm room, and he's been in the same business. He's worked with all these different musicians. In fact, he said something that was interesting to me. I actually screenshotted it, saved it, and I reread it on my phone. And he talked about that the most obsessive artist he ever worked with was Eminem, which is like, wait a minute, you work with everybody. You've had a 4-decade-long career. Like, why is that the case? Like, that makes me want to know more about that. Our mutual friend Brent Bayshore told me this hilarious story one time. Brent's got, he owns a bunch of different companies, and sometimes those companies need a CEO. And he found himself, I think, at like a lunch or a dinner with Charlie Munger. And so he's like, I'm this young guy, I think he was like 35 at the time, so I own these like 12 companies. How do you and Warren find like great CEOs? And Charlie's just like, we just find somebody that is a great CEO and say, come do that for us. Yeah. And Brent's followed, goes, yeah, what about hiring for potential? And he goes, we don't do that. It's just a beautifully simple like idea. But he's really good. Can you come do this over here?
Yeah, people show you. And I think that also, if you invert that, to use another Mungerism, it serves as great advice too, which is, if you're trying to get ahead, put stuff out in the world that people can find. I think you would call these breadcrumbs. Put breadcrumbs out into the world so that people see it and are amazed by it. Like, if you create a single thing, you don't do 10 things, just one thing that people are amazed by. Pour a year of your life into making one amazing thing that people are amazed by. And amazing things will happen, I promise you. Like, the internet is amazing at sharing something that is great. You say there's always room for great? Yeah. One of your maxims? That's true. Great takes time. Great's hard.
You just proved this. The idea of there's always room for great came because so many people are like, we don't need another podcast. I was like, okay, so we don't need any more music? Yeah. We're gonna stop making music? We're gonna stop making movies? Like, no, it's just like, we need less bad shit, but that's always gonna happen. Like, there's always room for great. You just proved this with the profiles. Yeah. Like, that idea was just hiding in plain sight. It was just not being done well. I was like, what if I just take this idea and not make it shitty? Well, Walt Disney, towards the end of his life, was very fascinating because everybody associates him with animation and Mickey Mouse and everything else. And yet, when he's towards the end of his life, he just asked, like, what is the things that he's most proud of? And he said, he named 2 things. He said, keeping control of my company, because he lost control of his first company and he's lost control of the first characters he made, and Disneyland. And Disneyland was his obsession. In fact, I read this book called Disney's Land, I think it's by this guy named Richard Snow. And it's not about the animation, it's not about everything we know him for. It's about how he thought about making this amusement park. And at the time, amusement parks were think of like low quality.
Yeah, sure.
They're like kind of scammy because
traveling carnies.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you come in there and there'd be like games to play and you'd get ripped off because the games were set up and everything else. And he's going around trying to raise money for this very unsuccessfully. And they're like, yeah, but amusement parks are like kind of like trashy. He's like, that's the point. Mine won't be. Yeah. It's because like mediocrity is always invisible until passion shows up and exposes it. Yeah. And he's just like, I'm just gonna take every single part of this and make it better, and then remove the parts that don't make any sense. Like, that's a great filter for like finding new things to create in the world.
By the way, I spent my 20s basically just reading, and I read more than you can imagine. I mean, you're probably the one person that can imagine it because you did something similar. But I wasn't just doing, literally everything I could get my hands on, thousands of books and profiles and everything. And I started the podcast in part because I started to feel this awful feeling of like, this is happening in this weird, isolated way. Like, just me and my notes. I'm not talking to anyone about these books. And so I wanted to start sharing, which is where that book email came from that you originally, that's where the audience came from. Like, I used to have the saying, learn, build, share, repeat, and just like do that until I die. And I believe in that. And so
it's still learn, build, share, repeat.
Yeah.
Still really good.
Still works. Yeah. And maybe that's my governing principle, probably, like you said before. And yeah, it's an incredibly powerful loop to go on. But that 10 years of reading prepared me to be a good producer of profiles, because I've seen great, I've seen good, I've seen average, I've seen bad. My reps are very, very, very high. And that's another thing I always tell people, especially young people, is like, what is the thing where you naturally have a lot of reps because you just like it? And build off that, because there's this learning by doing concept. Like, you get better at something just through being prolific in the thing. And most people have a thing for which they're naturally prolific. Even that, if that's following your sports team or whatever it might be, like, what's the thing you just can't help but do crazy high rep count of? Probably that's a good clue to like where you could go build one of these compounding curves for yourself. And for me, it was my first love was reading. That love of reading became the email list. Here's my 4 favorite books from the month. The email list gave me my first set of people to listen to the podcast. The podcast introduced me to all these people, helped me build my business and sell it successfully, and on and on and on. That led to positive sound, and me building my business successfully in software got me to all of these people building early stage companies, writing these small checks that got me to this Series A investment that caused me to create this new investment firm. Creating this new investment firm caused me to go invest in all these companies in a bigger way and be more impactful on them and their trajectories than I could have been on my own. The whole thing is daisy chained together because I loved reading fucking books in my 20s, and I did something about it, and I started telling other people which ones I liked. That's how it started. That's it. And all of that was unpredictable. Back to why I don't like goals. If you had told me when I sent that first email to list my goals, none of those things that I just listed would have been on my sheet. I wouldn't have even known to think about it. My own experience has cemented my belief in this growth without goals. Like, I wanted to grow. I love the idea in weightlifting. Jeremy Giffen and I talk about it all the time, of progressive overload. Of like always like a little bit harder, a little bit more, like go to failure, go to failure, go to failure. But the beautiful thing about life is you don't know where that's going to take you. God, I never in a million years could have predicted any of this crap. What's even more exciting is it doesn't stop. Some set of stuff's going to happen over the next 10 years, which if I tried to make a goal list today, I would be unable to predict. It's going to be so much fun. But it all started with, I had a thing I loved naturally, just like to read books. And I think that's profoundly cool. Now, obligatory disclaimer that like, I've been so unbelievably, I had the privilege to sit and read a gazillion books and not be spending all of that time just getting ahead like you had to, because again, I was very lucky. The situation I was born into in life with the parents I had, and the things that were easy for me, I didn't have to pay for college, all this stuff made it possible for me to do these things. And I think that's important to acknowledge. But nonetheless, like, you found your way there, you found the passion, you found the high rep passion, and now look. That's like my constant urging to people, like, it's there, I promise. There's something, just go find it.
I think it was beautifully said. We haven't even touched on investing, which I want to. I want to talk about, is it code red, seeing red? What is it? There's this fantastic story that we talked about before, where you were going to make an investment in somebody's fund. Is it seeing red? What did this person say about you?
He said I was red on the color wheel.
Okay, red on the color wheel. Can you tell that story?
Sure. So you, me, and Sam Hinkie were walking, and I think you asked Sam, what's my biggest weakness or something?
No, you were interviewing. Okay, so when you just said, like, this all started from, because I like love to read, and then that started this whole chain of events, and now you have this other parallel thing that you just do compulsively that you can't help, which is like exactly what you said. I'm doing 10 invest like the best episodes a day. I'm just recording, I'm doing 50 a week, and I'm just recording one. Like, if we're in a group, I know what's gonna happen. You're just gonna start lighting people with questions. So we go on this 5-hour walk, which Sam did not like. People don't know that you're like a goddamn billy goat. Okay, like, I just you walk way too fast. You don't go around obstacles. You just go straight over them. That's why I call you a billy goat, because they do that in real life. Like, if you're out in nature, and usually people, there's a mountain here. Like, I'll follow the trail around it. It's like, no, billy goats just go straight over and up. And like, it's like walking around with you. And so we're in Columbia, Missouri, of all places. We go on this like 5-hour walk, and essentially it's a 5-hour private invest like the best episode, except you're interviewing both of us. And you would ask the other person questions about the other person. It was like really impactful and important for me to understand myself, because again, like, somebody you trust and has your best interest in heart and is not trying to criticize you just for criticism. I think a lot of people are hypersensitive to criticism, and if it's like some random stranger, okay, that makes sense. But that person cares about you. You know that person wants the best for you, and they're telling you this about you. You should, even if you don't agree, you should think about it for a little bit. And I thought a lot about what he said over the years, and I definitely agree. Like, he was right. So I don't know how this got turned on you, but that's when he said, you're code red. No,
red on the color.
There you go.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, first, just a thought on Sam, which is, it's hard to imagine a higher compliment I can pay someone than the role that Sam plays in my life. The way I would phrase it maybe is, I have more conversations with Sam when he's not there than when he is. What I mean by that is, I'm often finding myself wondering, in a situation, like, what would Sam think about what I'm going to do here? I so value his character and judgment and fidelity and just so many things about him. But like, what a role to play in somebody's life. Like, he's the one I invoke in my head. One of 3 or 4 people that I invoke in my head. Like, what would this person think about, this thing I'm about to decide on? But back to the story. So he said, it was something like, what's my biggest weakness? And he described me as being red on the color wheel, which he explained meant that when I'm interested in something, I am intense. Like, and I've always been this way. I'm voracious and intense and aggressive. And I would say I have a skill at making things happen when I'm interested in them happening. And maybe that's one side of the sword. The other side of being red on the color wheel is this like locked in intensity. The other side of it is that like the moment that attention is focused elsewhere, I can tend to whiplash around a lot and change my opinion.
This
really
is known
fast.
lovingly amongst your friends as your eye of Sauron.
Okay.
Where like, if Patrick is focused on you, he will make shit happen. But if it's elsewhere, you're not. I've had to fly literally to Greenwich. Like, dude, get back. I'm like, we need to focus on this. I had to get in because you're. In some cases, it's like a physical presence thing. It's not just like, I can get you on the phone, but I was like, no, that's not good enough. So that's the strength. Your strength can be your weakness.
It's interesting. I learned something about myself recently, which I at first was terrified about, and now I've come to view as everything is double-edged. Which is I have if you close your eyes and try to visualize something, a red cardinal or something, there's a degree of how visually sharp that thing looks in your mind's eye when you close your eyes. For me, it's just black. I can't visualize anything. I can't see anything. I'm like, I discovered this like a year ago. I'm like, wait a minute, you can see things in your eyes closed. Like, what do you remember talking about?
We were at Brad Jacobs' house having breakfast.
Yeah.
He was very disturbed by this. So you tried to fix it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he put me through a guided, like, he tried to hypnotize me into visualizing something in the door. So anyway, the other side of that sword, it freaked me out that I couldn't see anything with my eyes closed. But the other side of that story is like when I'm focused on something like here right now, I'm not thinking about other stuff. Like it's just all this. I wish it wasn't the eye of Sauron. That sounds so bad.
But said in a loving way.
I understand. So Sam's point was you're red on the color wheel, and when your attention shifts, it can be whiplashy for those around you.
What is the example he gave though? It's too good of a story not to tell.
The example he gave was that Sam at the time was raising his first fund, and I was going to be an investor in the fund. And so he called me and said, putting this fund together, it's small, limited group of people. I'd love to have you if you want to do it. Hell yeah, I want to, of course. And told him the amount or whatever. And then he called me back like a month later and was like, okay, like I have the docs already and ready to go. And what, you still in for this much? And I said something like, well, yes, I'm still in, but I can't do that much because actually, like, I've also launched a fund. And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, I need to make a GP commit to my own fund. And so I'm, this is before I sold my business. It's a little bit, tighter situation, and I have to reduce the amount. And he started to tease me because he was like, wait, so when I first called you a month ago, you never even thought about having a fund. I've never heard you talk about that. I don't think you'd ever thought about it. And now a month later, like you already have a fund, like a month later, like it's raised and done. And I think that's a good example of like, yeah, some opportunity came out of left field. There was this investment opportunity in one company that led to a fund very quickly in the summer of 2020. And so yes, I like to move really, really fast when I'm interested in something, but my interest does shift around. And I don't think this is a good thing, by the way. Like I don't want to whiplash people. And I realized, thanks to Sam, that I was whiplashing people. I would be so excited and willing and able to galvanize people around an idea. And then I would change and this still happens, but I would change my mind and completely forget about the idea. Back to like people that have this lack of visualization thing. Also, I have quite bad event memory. I don't ever think about stuff in the past, like ever. And so not only can I change my idea, but I literally never think about that thing again that I was so passionate about in the moment, for a short period of time. And that is jarring for people, that are like signed on to do a thing. And then a week later, you're like, what are you talking about? What thing? Like, we're doing this thing. And so I've worked pretty hard to narrow simplify my life with rhythm and harmony, focus on fewer things, like get less distracted by what I would call like the flavor of the month club, which is something that can definitely snare me for sure.
Yeah, now that you say that, I haven't had any like eye of Sauron moments with you in quite a while. You've kind of fixed that. I heard Ari Emanuel on your podcast say something that was like actually really smart, where he's like his idea of like especially when you're trying to do a deal, like over communicates. And I think a lot of that is like the problems. Like I didn't understand that about you because I never worked with you before. And then I was like, I don't get it. Like what's going on here? And then other people that knew you explained that, and I'm like, oh, like I'm like having an issue, and we've never even had an argument or a fight. And one thing that I love about it is like we worked together for years, and we never had paper or anything. We never had a contract. We just said, hey, this is what the agreement is. We shook hands, and like we did what we were supposed to do up until the very like it was just like exactly how I want to. I don't want to deal with people where there's like half deal with people where there's like a bunch of contracts. I want to know like you gave me your word, I gave you mine, and like this is what we're gonna do. We'll like figure it out. But I think what was happening there is like there's all this like unsaid stuff that you think we are looking at in the same way, and yet if we just said, oh wait, like this is something about this thing, this is something about that thing, like just essentially just over communicate as much as possible with the people that are important to you, because then you're not going to have there's no unspoken assumption, and then if you let it sit there too long, then you have another unspoken assumption on top of that one, then things can get like really, really weird.
I think a lot about leadership because ultimately my main job is to back people with LP dollars, lots of them, that have been entrusted to me as a fiduciary into companies led by these people that we're backing, that are usually pretty early in their company building journey. So you're mostly or largely backing the person in the team versus the mature business story. And it's pretty important that person's a good leader. And I think one of the things I underestimated about great leaders that Ravi Gupta is another person that I would list, and people that have really impacted me. At one point I called like everyone I knew. I was like, well, define good leader. Just I'm gonna do a survey. And Ravi gave my favorite answer. He was like, it's not hard. Like a great leader is someone that other people want to follow. That's it. And everyone else had given much more ornate definitions. And Ravi's was my favorite. And what I've learned about what is shared in common amongst people that others want to follow. One of the big ones is that they are hyper communicative with those people, and they're consistent, and they lead from the front. They take risk. They take arrows for the team. They communicate like crazy with the team. If something's changing, they over communicate it. They're honest. Like all these things add up to someone that people want to follow. And I think I was quite bad on that dimension for a long time. Not because I was trying to be bad, just because I was so excitable. I am so excitable. Like when I find something new and interesting, like, I just cannot get enough. But very often that means I'm billy goating up ahead of the pack and forgetting like, oh wait, I need to like, there's all these people that I want to do this with. I don't want to just do this alone. So that's been a big lesson for me that it's taken a while to learn. But yet another thing to credit Sam.
Some of the best leaders, like when you see like company buildings, like history space, like really think of them as like they're teachers, and then they understand they need to repeat. I would say repetition is persuasive. You gave me a great like Catholic saying where it's like repetition doesn't spoil the prayer. So I think like Jim Sinegal, founder of Costco, he has this great line in the book, this biography of his mentor, this guy named Sol Price, who basically he's like the most influential retailer of all time. Jim Sinegal was mentored by him. Sam Walton took more ideas from him than anybody. Bernie Marcus got the idea for doing Home Depot from Sol Price. Jeff Bezos took ideas from Sol Price. Like it's just
So because I'm on the other side of the mic, my friend David Sanders
going to take you. God, I never know that person through a guided like he tried to hypnotize me into visualizing something. It didn't work. So anyway, the other side of that sword, it freaked me out that I couldn't see anything. I had to whiplash people, and I realized
there's no unspoken assumption, and then if you let it sit there too long, then like they're teachers, and then they understand they need to repeat. I would say repetition is persuasive. You gave me a great like Catholic saying where it's like repetition doesn't spoil the prayer. So I think like Jim Sinegal, founder of Costco, he has this great line in the book, this biography of his mentor, this guy named Sol Price, who basically he's like the most influential retailer of all time. Jim Sinegal was mentored by him. Sam Walton took more ideas from him than anybody. Bernie Marcus got the idea for doing Home Depot from Sol Price. Jeff Bezos took ideas from Sol Price. Like it's just incredible like how influential this guy was, and most people know he is. And in that book, he says that if you're not spending 90% of your time teaching, you're not doing your job as the leader of the company. And what it is like it means like teaching what our philosophy is, what is our purpose, what we do, how we do it, why we're doing it, and you just repeat it over and over again. I just did this episode called How Elon Works, which is I think the most downloaded episode of Founders ever. Like it's just nuts. And what I was shocked is even you don't think of Elon as like he's definitely a singular character. There's nobody else like him that I found living or dead. There's usually some kind of historical equivalent of anybody. I haven't found a historical equivalent of him. And you would think, oh, he's working like 7 different companies at a time. He can't possibly be like this. And he was mentioning like that algorithm, that 4-part algorithm he had that he uses in all his companies. He's like, I say it so much, I repeat it so much that you'll be in a meeting and my executives will be mouthing the words along with me. They know what I'm about to say. And I think that has to do with like over communication. It's like we are going to be on the same page. I'm not worried that you hear this for the 10th time. I'm worried that you're not understanding where we're going or how we're going to do it. And so I think about that like a ton, like repeat.
Yeah, the joy of that sort of thing and that sort of leader my favorite, you have all these great maxims. My favorite maxim, pretty much the only one we use in my business with my team, is the reward for great work is more work. And I find that saying that maxim to the right person, like the kind of person I want to spend time with, their eyes go wide and they understand it immediately, that the reward for great work is not money, power thing. It is the privilege to get to do more of this thing that I love doing. The problem with coming up with like good terms for this stuff, we use this term life's work, is that immediately everyone else starts saying it and it ceases to have any meaning, because like now every goddamn meeting I'm in, like I'm doing my life's work. And my experience is that almost nobody is doing their life's work. Even a lot of great founders, I would say it's not their life's work. I love the fact that Thomas Jefferson on his tombstone has 3 things that describe his life, but one of them is not that he was the president of the United States. He was author of the Declaration of Independence, founder of the University of Virginia, not president. And I think that's so interesting. And so I think a lot about like, is this thing this person is doing going to be on their tombstone? And usually the answer is no. And the reason I like this concept of life's work so much, which I would define as a lifelong quest to build something for others that expresses who you are. All 3 parts are really important.
Say that one more time.
A lifelong quest to build something for others that expresses who you are. And we have to build something for others that expresses who you are.
Say that one more time.
A lifelong quest to build something for others that expresses who you are. And we have trained ourselves to see this in people. By the way, the best way to figure this out, my favorite question for founders, is literally just give me 2 hours, tell me your whole life story up until the point you founded your company. Let's talk about your company later. Like, just tell me what got you to here. Back to best story wins, originality, hardship, transformation. In the business context, it's I want someone that's lived a very unique path. I find success in startups is the result of path dependency very often. Some unique set of lessons and experience led to you being the right person to do this thing. And then hardship, of course, the harder the business is to build, the harder it will be to copy. I think that's really important. Transformation is about the customer. If you build something crazy hard, the customer's life will get way better service. So I think this powerful concept of life's work can be applied to ourselves to make great investments. And it's really rare, but the leadership qualities of like the reward for great work is more work. The reason I started talking about life's work and investing is these people come to realize you will not be rewarded with great work if you do not become a good leader. And a common pitfall that I certainly have fallen in before is when there's someone really talented, they can do a lot themselves. They can get a lot done themselves. And I refer to this as like heroics. And that's always necessary. A founder always has is the flame keeper of the spirit of the company. And I think founder-led companies are so much more interesting, preaching to the choir here, than professionally managed companies for the most part. But I do think that like becoming a great leader becomes the most important way to secure more right to do great work.
Is there anybody that you admire that was doing great work and then stopped? Whether they sold their company, they retired, whatever the case is there anybody that you know that like you admire? Personally, that stopped.
There's tons of people I admire who changed what they do a lot, or have changed what they do a lot, who stopped one thing and went to another thing.
But they're doing something.
Yeah, I don't. I'm just wired this way. You are too. I just need to be doing something. I can't sit around. And so I'm drawn to people that want to make stuff. And so I have tons of examples of people who have been tried lots of things and made lots of things and moved on from things and had chapters in their life and then a new chapter with doing something totally different. There's one investor that comes to mind. His name is John Pfeffer. And John has been wildly successful. And it's almost like he picks whatever he's doing, and as he gets to the tail end of it, he tries to find like a thing in the world that is the most different from what he's doing. He says with glee that require him completely abandon his current network because they're irrelevant for it. Like one time he went from being one of the key guys at KKR, and then went to be like one of the most important guys in cryptocurrency, and then went from that to building like a grocery store chain in the UK. And each time he's like, I literally had to start from scratch, and I love it. Like I had to build a completely new network of people. And so I know lots of people like John who have successfully hopped around. I know your focus is more on people that do a thing for a really, really long time, but I don't spend a lot of time with people that were prolific creators of things that just stopped.
I think they're like the saddest people. Like you're in this infinite game, and there's some set of circumstances that cause you to like make that decision.
And here's an example. There's this really fun game. You can do it with your friends. You sit down, and on a piece of paper, you write down 10 roles that you play in the world: podcaster, father, whatever, friend, and then you tear them up so it's just one thing on each sheet of paper, and then you have to, in reverse order, 10 down to 1, slowly throw the rolls away until you're left with 1. Okay, so one roll left. It's a really interesting game. It's interesting for yourself, but also super interesting to see what your friends pick. First of all, what's on the list of 10? You can do this with attributes for yourself too. Curious, hardworking, whatever, and then jettison those one by one. Fun game. I played this with my wife and my kids and my in-laws one time, and I'll never forget it. My father-in-law had a very, very successful career as an entrepreneur and executive in the kind of healthcare and insurance world. And we were doing this game, and his last one was grandfather. So that was like the role that he kept as his final most important one. And he is an unbelievable like the Michael Jordan of grandfathers. Like he is unbelievably good at being a grandfather. It's like makes me emotional thinking about it. I'm so thankful for it. And the difference it makes in my kid's life and his other grandkids' life is extraordinary. And so Dan is his name. Dan is no longer a major healthcare executive. He's still an entrepreneur. He's not given it up completely, but he definitely devotes himself more to something like that, which in some sense is much smaller, and in other sense is the biggest possible thing you could do. And so even the people that sort of like stop the commercial side that I love tend to find a thing to pour themselves into. And in this case, it's the same thing we've been talking about this whole time. It's an active service. They show up at everything to be the most reliable, to be the most fun, just over and over and over again. In this case, in the role of grandfather. So I think that's exciting for my own life. That maybe when I'm 70, I won't do any of this stuff, and I'll do something else that's totally different. But my attitude towards it hopefully will be the same, and that will be because I've gotten the privilege of watching people like him do that sort of role at that stage of their life. So back to your original question. The people I love and admire most do pour themselves into what they're doing, regardless of what that role is, even as that role shifts around as life goes on.
You gave me this term that we describe people that we don't want to spend time with. That now I think I just use and I came up with it, and it's casual. It's like, do you want to go to dinner with this person or do you want to meet this person? And like shorthand between me and you, we're always another casual. Like they're just not. It's the exact opposite. It's a beautiful story. Like I went from like I pity these people that don't work anymore to like that person's better than I am. That guy's a better person than I am.
I mean, honestly, there's something very beautiful about the scope of the ambition shrinking so narrow. We talk a lot about the $1 trillion coach. What's his first name?
Bill Campbell.
I never met Bill Campbell. I wish I had. It's this beautiful archetype of older guy from just working with a couple executives. He worked with Google and some of the most famous companies. But was apparently like transformative in the lives of these people. But it was like 5 people or 3 people or whatever small set of people, and that's it. And he wasn't doing it for money or fame or power or any of this stuff. He was just doing it to help these couple people. I think that's a really cool exercise to be like, what if the only thing I was allowed to do in my life, nothing else was allowed, was help 3 people? Who would they be and what would I do for them? Dan helping his 4 grandkids or something like that. But that makes me excited for later stages of life when I think the ability to do something like that goes up. And that is every bit as successful in my mind and in my book as Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or pick the people that we all worship in the business world. Of course, I'm amazed by them too, but there are flavors of success. And to me, that sort of devotion, even if it's to one person, to your wife, to your kids, whatever, is every bit as successful, and if not more so, because that shit will ripple through history. My son and my daughter will now behave differently because of the experience that Dan and my mother-in-law and my dad and my mom gave to my kids. So what's better than that?
It's so unusual for us to even contemplate that. Like some of the decisions you're making right now are going to ripple through generations. They're going to affect things way after you're gone. Somebody, we talked about this I think yesterday. Somebody took a bunch of like interviews I've done and stuff I said on the podcast and like literally made like a hip hop album, and there's like 8-track hip hop album. I think it's called like David Center Founders or something like that. And we keep talking about it, but I sent it to Hinky because the first one was like this idea of like generational inflection point.
Yeah.
Generational inflection point, which is like the founder of the family. And Hinky's rather religious in a way that maybe I'm not. And he's like, did you script this? I was like, no, did you know about this? Like, no, like somebody just sent it to me. Like, you think I'm making music about myself? Like, come on,
I wouldn't put it faster.
And so I was like, no. And he's like, yeah, I listened to a bunch of them, but like that first song, he's like, that's obviously like that's a sign from God. You should consider it a sign from God. I'm like, what? What is this? And we're on the phone. I was like, what are you talking about? The reason that came to mind is because in that song, I guess I talked about, I think it was on your show, where I was just like, this choice by this man I don't remember, and I never met. I met him, but I don't remember him, which is my grandfather, who's 30 years old, living in Cuba, no education, doesn't speak English, doesn't have money, has 2 jobs, works in a shoe factory, and is a butcher. Somehow realized, oh, Fidel Castro, this is probably bad. I have to go to a country that like I don't know anybody. Yeah, I don't speak language, and like that's just one choice. 3 decades later, whatever, I'm going to be born, and now I'm born in a capitalistic, greatest country in my opinion, greatest country in the world, as opposed to that, like that one decision by somebody I don't remember, like ripples through the entire generations. I think it's a very interesting thing to contemplate when you're trying to make your decisions. The last thing on his list was grandfather. What was the last thing on yours?
The story was so overwhelming, I honestly don't remember. It was probably husband or father, one of those 2. To me, those are the most interesting roles in life. You and I, you know how I feel about those 2 things. And so it's probably one of those 2 where I probably cheated and said, can I have both? And I hope it's that till it's grandfather, I guess. But the available, I said something like this earlier, but the depths available in those relationships are crazy to me. I can't believe that every couple years I find a new level of those things. I just can't believe. Every time it happens, I'm like, I can't believe it's happening again. And in terms of like a place that can yield rewards, those are the most interesting to me. But more generally, like maybe this is the theme of our conversation today, the small set of relationships with people for whom I would do anything. And that's how I'm wired. Like there's a certain category of person, you're one of them, whatever you need. You need to explain it, like I'll do it. And getting to that point with people, I don't think life's too short, and there's only so much energy in a day, and so you can't do this for 1,000 people. But you can do it for 10, 15, follow Dunbar's number or something, you probably do it for 15, and that is my prized possession. That list of people for whom I would do anything is my prized possession. And I think that can probably be true for just about anybody. And so I hope to act in a certain way to deserve that group of people. And even if they don't feel the same way about me, that's okay. If I'm in the list of 15, not 15, it's fine. I think that role game is quite fun because I think it pulls out of you like where you have the most energy.
I think this exactly what like we talked about today is like why I'm so obsessed with having conversations with people I find interesting. Obviously, people I have like deep relationships with, because like this is why I'm gonna keep holding on to this idea that I'm not interviewing people, I'm having conversations, because we talk all the time. I had no idea where this conversation was going, and I went places like I learned stuff about you that I did not know. And so I really appreciate you saying yes to me and coming kicking and screaming on. I want to end by turning it around on you. What is the kindest thing someone's ever done for you?
One is they're related, so I'll tell them in order. The first was I had a cousin. I come from an Irish Catholic family where when you go to the family reunion, you get a sheet that looks like one of those maps from the 90s where you just have to like keep unfolding it because there's just so goddamn many people. And so I have cousins who are technically my like third or fourth cousins that feel in my family more like a first cousin. One of my third cousins was a guy named Tim O'Shaughnessy. And when I was a bad student in high school. I was like a very good student as a young kid. I went to this giant high school in Connecticut, like 4,000 students, and I just partied way too hard and didn't get good grades and didn't take it seriously. And so there was a day, I remember very distinctly, I was at a friend's house having stayed up too late the night before, and my dad called me and said, hey, you should probably come home. There's a whole bunch of very small envelopes here from colleges. So I got rejected from every college I applied to the first time I applied to colleges, and I got all the rejection letters on the same day. It was a bad day. So then I reapplied to some other schools. I wanted to go to the University of Notre Dame, and I called them and I said, where are some schools that have a compatible curriculum with yours? Because I would really love to work hard and then transfer. So they gave me a list. I went to one of those schools. I got very good grades. I transferred to Notre Dame. So now I'm a sophomore at Notre Dame. And I didn't know anybody. I met, they do, it's not like freshman year where you have all this amazing orientation. You transfer student, they're like, here's your room number, like, see you later. So I met like a couple other transfer students, and that was it. And back to being shy, like I wasn't at the time good at like navigating a new social situation. I wasn't good at it. So Tim, who I met like maybe, I didn't know Tim well. Tim was from the Midwest. I didn't know him that well growing up. He took it upon himself to come meet me, find me. I remember distinctly he brought me a fake ID. He went so out of his way for like the first 6 months to like organ transplant me into his social circle. And like maybe Tim owed me a beer or two, a couple nights out and a beer was his obligation as a family member. But instead he would like call ahead to his friends saying like, I'm sick, I can't go out, but Patrick's coming out, can you just like show him a good time? Just like over and over and over again. Like literally he just injected me into this community. Tim is the reason that I met my wife, which I'm gonna come back to in a second. I met my best man, met the only other groomsman in my wedding that wasn't a family member. So through this act of over the top kindness, there's nothing in it for him. He was just doing the right thing. It sort of set me up for the rest of my life, which brings me to the second thing. So my first night at Notre Dame, Tim shows up with this fake ID that says I'm 5'4" with blonde hair and blue eyes, and we go to a place called Boat Club, which let me in with this fake ID and was shut down for letting people in with this sort of fake ID like 3 weeks later, permanently. May it rest in peace. And I walked into Boat Club, and the story of meeting Lauren, my wife, was that was my first night at Notre Dame, the first bar I walked into, and she was the first girl that I talked to. And that is a crazy stroke of divine luck or something. But it was lucky because I was 19 when I met her, she was 20, and we've been together and married and have kids ever since. And the true answer to kindness is her, because for 20 years now, we just crossed the point of our lives where I've been with her more than I haven't in my life, which is so crazy. I'm not young anymore, I'm 40, but not old. And to have been with her for more than half my life and to have grown up as an adult, whatever they say, your prefrontal cortex like matures when you're 25 or something. So like 6 years with her where I didn't even have a fully developed brain. It's by far the number one blessing is that she, we have created this life together in a way that I mean, the 10,000 things that she's done that add up to that 20 years is like the very clear, true answer. Tim tragically died very young. Which was awful. But I think about him all the time because without him, none of this would have happened and this life wouldn't exist. And so I love this story and I love this question, because whole lives are downstream of simple, quick acts of kindness. And without Tim, my life doesn't look anything like what it looks like today. All the things I care the most about don't exist, probably. And so I remind myself of that every day, which is why I love asking this question.
That was awesome. Now everybody else gets to see what I get to see in private, and this is why you should do more podcasts. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, buddy.
That was really cool. That was really cool. Wow.